across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yes, thank you to Julia. Welcome back, Julia Hartley-Brewer. She's returning tomorrow, of course, at 10 o'clock. It's a busy afternoon here at the home of common sense. So much to get through. Keir Starmer's domestic agenda is up in the air, of course, because there is somewhat of a blockade going on over there, and that is causing havoc with energy prices and, of course, what happens at the pump as well. Starmer acknowledges the crisis could actually raise energy bills, with oil predicted to exceed $100 a barrel. The UK is highly vulnerable to rising foreign gas costs, of course, possessing only 2 days' worth of reserves. What does that all mean in translation? We'll have the full details throughout the course of the programme. Over the weekend, Iran named Khamenei, the son of the former Ayatollah, as the new supreme leader. It's not a bad gig, is it? I think you can do it. Hey, I've got the big job. The recent killings of most of his family members mean fewer people have more intense personal reasons to fiercely resist America and reject any kind of compromise or surrender. This is going to get messy. There are some reports he's already been injured. And the government has launched a new social cohesion action plan to strengthen community ties and shared values. The initiative includes measures to combat extremism, notably in universities and the charity sector. Good luck with that, because everyone's failed each time they've given it a bit of a go. Everything you need to know, and we'll bring you all the breaking news. There's bound to be some right here on Talk. 0344 499 1000. That's the number to call, or of course you can leave a voice note there as well, or you can message 87222. Lines are open on all of that. How can the UK ensure energy security? Now, at the weekend, we know there was finally, there was that phone call between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. I thought the American president was never going to speak to him again. Finally, they got on the blower and had a bit of a chat. How did they get on? Did they sort the oil problem? This, everybody, is an exclusive. The actual phone call between the two of them. Have a listen to this.
Hi Donald, I am here to take decisive action. We will soon be holding a meeting about holding another meeting regarding international law.
Here I have already said we don't need people that join wars after we've already won.
But Donald, oil prices have gone up, and it turns out shutting the North Sea and betting on net zero leaves you rather short of energy.
Beautiful Britain, beautiful country, Keir. Shame you turned the power off. Ed Miliband, not so beautiful.
Yeah. We are the first to get hold of that exclusive chat, but you kind of know it went something like that. Mr. Trump then went on to say this.
Drill, baby, drill.
Yeah. And that rather goes to the heart of all of this. Keir Starmer now faces a battle on the home front as the Middle East crisis threatens to drive the problem, or his drive to cut the problem of cost of living. He admitted last night that households were worried about how it will affect energy bills. Fears are growing that Britain will be hit by the highest wholesale gas prices in Europe, while oil prices could breach, as I said at the beginning, that $100 a barrel within days. I mean, this is the Strait of Hormuz, where the tankers can't get through. Essentially, Iran has blocked them, and that causes a massive knock-on effect, and we stand to be in the worst possible position. We're paying more for foreign gas because it is less stored than other European nations. So the gigawatt hours are 6,700. Translate that as you will, but it means our reserves run up to about 2 days. So is the answer this?
Drill, baby, drill.
It might be. We'll get some voices on that. What are you paying at the pump? That all of these areas, whether it's your domestic bills or whether it's the cost of filling up your motor, huge problem. How can the UK ensure energy security? We'll take your calls on that. We've got some great voices coming on as well. Meanwhile and elsewhere, and I say meanwhile and elsewhere, I mean, that's a kind of dramatic pause. It's not like there was meant to be a clip there or anything like that. Meanwhile and elsewhere, Communities will be brought back together and the scourge of extremism tackled through a new action plan strengthening social cohesion across the country. This is being published today. Just have a listen to some of this. The new action plan is launched against a backdrop of rising hate crime and extremism, and at a time of global insecurity mean local ties are more important than ever. So they want different communities to come together. So following years of chronic underinvestment in communities, apparently this takes money to do this, really, millions will be pumped into local areas to restore national pride. You have to pay for national pride. An extra £5 million to boost for the Common Ground Resilience Fund. Yes, they've even given it a name. Backing grassroots organisations and local authorities to tackle divisions in communities with community events, interfaith programmes, get in the bin, and youth projects to reduce isolation and strengthen social ties. Now, I'm all for everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. Been banging on about it forever. They're going to build this pot. They're already committed to hundreds of neighbourhoods through the Pride in Place programme. How many programmes and initiatives can they have? Today, and the action plan will also set clear expectations set for integration for people looking to settle in the country and introduce stronger measures to tackle extremism and religious hatred. Now, have a listen to this. This is the Housing Secretary, Steve Reed, if you don't know. He says there are so many forces in the world that want to pull communities apart, when in reality, we have so much more in common. Oh, isn't he a regular Martin Luther King? The UK, he says, is a multi-ethnic, diverse society, and here it comes. We should celebrate each other's cultures and traditions and shared values that unite us as a nation. Why would I want to do that? Why would anybody have to share another group's values or culture? I mean, seriously, I'm not trying to be smart or just bloody-minded here. He says we must listen to people's concerns about growing divisions and take action to bring our communities together. How do you bring communities together? If I ask you that question just like that, how do you bring communities together? He says that's why we're investing to restore pride, empowering people to transform where they live, uniting people around the love of their local area. One word, cobblers. And, of course, we'll take your calls on that as well. 0344 499 1000. How are you meant to bring communities together and sing from a common hymn sheet when cultures, by definition, function largely autonomously? You have to surely have a go-to set of ideas. This is what we do. This hybrid thing that parliamentarians over the years have just driven themselves mad by saying, yeah, don't worry, we can bring all this together, we can do this, we do, and you can't really, not with the level of success implied in those words, we need to celebrate each other's cultures and traditions. I don't want to celebrate somebody else's cultures and traditions. I want to admire and respect other people's cultures and traditions. I don't need to embrace it and be part of it. I mean, that would just be weird. 0344 499 1000. Your thoughts on that as well. Let's get a word on this and the other big stories of the day. James Price is with us, former government special advisor. James, good afternoon to you.
Hello, my friend. I could not agree more with everything you've just said then. But that's me respecting and sharing your culture, I'm sure.
Well, indeed, yes. And I'm glad we can respect each other's culture on this one, James. It is great. You might be a little bit older than me, but, you know, that doesn't stop us getting along.
Thank you for respecting your elders. Yeah.
I mean, it is rather interesting, isn't it? I mean, just let's dwell on that specific point. We've seen these kind of initiatives come and go in the past, and it's very easy, isn't it, to write those kind of very, very worthy press releases, as we know what Steve Reed's all about there, you know, bringing people together, celebrating our diverse differences, embracing each other's cultures. What does that actually mean in practice?
Yeah, you're right. It's complete word salad, isn't it? And unsurprising from a Labour frontbencher who hasn't got a Scooby about anything he's been doing for a long time. Unfortunately, I was actually Steve Reed's constituent for a few years. That wasn't a very pleasant experience, and I wasn't terribly impressed with any of his responses to any constituent emails. And I'm sure you can imagine were respectfully written on my end, at least.
Absolutely.
It is true, of course, as he says, that Britain is now a multi-ethnic society. And the most important thing to do with that information is to try and downplay it as much as possible, because the more you dwell on the fine-grained differences between ethnicities, the more likely people are to take umbrage and to dislike that and to bring with them ethnic grievances from other parts of the world, which is what we've already seen.
Yeah.
You see Eritreans and Ethiopians having pitched fights in Tottenham. You've seen groups in Leicester who call themselves, the Muslim militias versus Hindu militias going on. Every time a conflict from around the world flares up, you see this. The most important thing to do with that information, therefore, ignore it as much as humanly possible and try and think about the things that unite us, which would take you on, exactly as you say, into the culture points. And then he says we're a multicultural society. Again, that's true. And it's a bad thing. There is a British culture that has been existent in this island that has grown and changed and developed over many, many centuries, influenced by the environment around us, influenced by religion, by the rule of law, by literature, by music, by the kind of individual way that families grow differently in this country than others. And I would say, and I hope most people watching would agree with this, that it's the best culture in the world. It's certainly up there and has managed to export itself very successfully to lots of other countries around the world that are also now multi-ethnic democracies and all of that. The idea that you should love and respect other cultures just because they're different is why we're in the mess we're in the first place. Yeah. And people finally on this will go, oh, but you get wonderful different meals and cuisines from other cultures. Like, yeah, okay, great. But that's not necessarily worth the kind of ethnic and sectarian strife, the religious hatred and intolerance that comes along with it. We want to have one set of cultural ideas and beliefs almost exclusively influenced by what this island has produced over thousands of years. And if people want to come along and sign up to that and be part of it, then you've got to set aside a lot of those incompatible cultural differences if we've any hope of this country coming together again. Indeed. It's not going to be done, by the way, with Labour taxing us and spaffing some more money up the wall on some misguided community projects or whatever.
Great message from Don in Chelmsford, who says the answer to our social problems and community cohesion is more breakfast clubs. I was surprised that... Surprised Starmer didn't just put that on the end of the speech there. Well,
that'll stop all the stabbings, right?
Indeed, yeah. Breakfast club, more breakfast clubs. This isn't new, of course. As I said, many politicians over the years have given this one a go. Let's have a reminder of what David Cameron, going way back here now, this is what he said 11 years ago.
We also need to do more in education. We undertook an immediate review when it became apparent that extremists had taken over some of our schools in the so-called Trojan horse scandal here in Birmingham. But I have to be honest here, 1 year on, although we're making progress, it's not quick enough. It's taken too long to take action against the governors and teachers involved in the scandal and to support the schools affected to turn themselves around.
That's him speaking at the One United Kingdom moment initiative a little while back. And let's, James, have a listen to Keir Starmer speaking this morning.
This really sad feature in many ways of a conflict like this, which is some people will try to use it to divide communities in this country.
Yeah. It's interesting, James, isn't it? You listen to Cameron, whatever anybody thought of Cameron, and you think the difference between their oratory skills are a chasm and more apart there, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Although, it should be said, David Cameron, I think, excellent in lots of ways when it comes to getting the deficit down. And there were some very good things he did, certainly compared to lots of what we've seen since. But he didn't really go out there and say exactly what the matter was in that Trojan horse scandal. And in fact, in 2015, when he gave that speech, there was also a report that came out that recommended the banning, the proscription of the Muslim Brotherhood, which Cameron then declined to do. And no political party leader has ever gone near it.
Why is that? I mean, loads of other countries have gone there.
Exactly right. Like in all the countries that we might talk about in a second when it comes to energy problems in the Gulf, all of these guys, because they're very intimately familiar with how these Islamist groups work, they've banned it. It's banned in Saudi, banned in the UAE, banned in Bahrain. It's now being banned in other places too. It's banned in Kenya recently, which has gone mostly unnoticed. The Americans are talking about banning a lot of it. And then you come to Keir Starmer, far from banning any of these things, seems absolutely desperate to kind of kowtow before the worst kind of instincts of people who might be minded to support that kind of Islamism by, saying in the Westminster Hall last week, we were no part of this, please keep voting for the Labour Party, please don't go off to the Mad Greens or whomever else. And this is not exactly the sign of a healthy cultural moment for the United Kingdom. And this speaks to the point that we've just been talking about, that there are some cultures out there that are so different from ours in fundamental ways they see the world that it's impossible to sit along and share the values and respect it and all that sort of stuff. Right? If you think in a world that even if someone in my family does the worst crimes imaginable in Britain, sorry, people are having lunch, think about the grooming gangs, I'm going to try and protect them and give them alibis and defend them. That is not something that most Brits do. Most Brits would be horrified by this, and they would rightly report their families for doing those evil crimes. We've seen the opposite of that happen in these other communities in Britain. That's just one example of this, and why this stuff is doomed to failure unless we ruthlessly pursue taking people they have to integrate into this country. And if they don't, and we've got some other way of getting them somewhere else, or locking them up if they commit crimes, we've got to be a lot more robust about doing this, or we don't have a society anymore.
Yeah, great point. Stay with us, James. More to come from James Price, former government special advisor. How does this country achieve this utopian social cohesion? How do we do? What's the method to that? Do we have to set out a bullet point rule book on what you have to do? Do you have to ban stuff? Do you have to embrace stuff? How does that work in reality? 0344 499 1000. And has the UK, or how does the UK ensure energy security? Do we just do what Donald Trump says?
Drill, baby, drill.
Is that the answer to everything? Because right now there's a big old blockade going on in the Straits, and Iran are responsible. We're being held hostage and bills will go up. Your thoughts on that? Lines open. This is Talk.
Not one tear will be shed over this vile monster. I can't condone the way in which he came to his very sticky end. I'm sure there will be a thorough investigation and that charges will probably follow. Ian Huntley, one of the most notorious and most wicked murderers of recent times in the UK. My thoughts, of course, remain with Holly and Jessica, those two beautiful young girls that he so wickedly snuffed out their lives, and everybody who loved them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 1:20. We have James Price, former government special advisor, with us looking at the big stories. And I guess central to everything, we know what is happening in Iran, and, you know, that story is certainly not over. But one of the huge, most significant knock-on effects, of course, is that of energy, because we know there is a bit of a blockade going on. This is affecting oil. It will affect energy prices. It'll affect the forecourt, James. This is a bit of a mess. Is Keir Starmer the man to solve it?
You find me the question to which Keir Starmer is the adequate answer. Goodness. Yeah. It's not him. It's definitely not Ed Miliband, who the public rejected roundly in a general election, 11 and a half years ago now, something like that, who's considered too bonkers even back then. And as the world and Britain has got weirder and weaker, unfortunately, Ed Miliband is not the guy for this. At a moment where we're looking at energy prices absolutely spiking, what's Britain's current energy policy? To continue going down with net zero I'm looking out the window now, pretty foggy. You might get a little bit from solar panels, and it's great if you can do, and the cost of them of course are coming down, but it's not the solution probably for somewhere like us that's not this sunny. And what else are we doing? Oh yeah, that's right, we're getting rid of North Sea oil, North Sea gas, and to the point where Miliband is looking like he's going to concrete over a load of the fracking wells to make sure that you can never get into any of these things again. The same kind of fracking, by the way, that has made America totally energy independent. Its bills more than half as cheap as our bills. They're actually energy exporters now because of what they've managed to do with shale gas under their feet. And we're doing absolutely everything the opposite of what you'd want to do given this shock. And people are going to suffer enormously personally as a result. And they're going to suffer as well, I think, because of their businesses. And you cannot have industrial business in this country with the way that energy prices are going, which means that businesses will go bust, you'll get lower taxes, or people that want to grow cool, exciting new technologies of the future will go abroad.
Indeed. And when Donald Trump says,
"Drill, baby, drill,"
we understand what he means, but of course, even if we wanted to start that tomorrow, James, I mean, that would be a process now, wouldn't it? I mean, we've, closed it all up, as you say, lobbed concrete down the wells and goodness knows what else. So if you had that as an intention, if a new party, Reform, whoever came in and said, right, we're going to give this fracking thing a good go, we're going to go back to the North Sea and see what we can do there. I mean, you could be in for the long haul on that.
Yeah, it's not something you can just switch on, which is why Miliband knows this and why he's pouring the concrete over and trying to make it as difficult as is humanly possible, and Britain will continue having high energy costs for a long, long time. In that case, then you look around the world and say, well, who are our closest allies who are now energy independent to the point that they are exporting energy? The United States of America. Who has Starmer managed to massively fall out with? The United States of America. And this is the problem. Between us and the Germans, we have been totally bonkers about this. The Germans, tied their entire economy in some ways to American defense, which is out the window. The Chinese continuing to buy their products forever, that's out the window. And most of all, cheap Russian energy, which has also gone out the window. And all you've got to do then is look at the French sat between us and the Germans, who, because they continue to invest in nuclear energy, their bills are way cheaper than ours, and they're much more energy independent. And the tragedy of that, of course, is not only that we're losing to the French, but that in the 1960s, Britain had more nuclear power stations than every country in the world put together, and we let that go.
Indeed. And let's move connected to that. They've been having, a lot of people miss this actually, they had some elections in Iran in the last couple of days to find a new supreme leader. They asked everybody, it was all fair and square stuff, who should get the big job. All Iranians had an equal chance, of course. Turns out, and boy, what a coincidence this is. It's only the former Ayatollah's son who won. Unbelievable. It was
what
like
a great
kind of
coincidence.
Yeah, it was a bit like, when Susan Boyle won Britain's Got Talent, apparently it was a bit of a moment like that. Nobody thought it possible, and yet he came to the forefront and managed to do it, and they all cheered and went, hey, Mr. Khamenei, we recognise that name from somewhere. Are you Oh, yes, he was your old man. So, yeah, all nice, fair and square over there in Iran with a new leader. Will this make any difference, James?
Well, I think you said earlier on it sounded like quite a good gig as you were introducing this. I would politely disagree, because I think this guy's got days left to live if any of the previous leadership of this country is anything to go by. I think that it's an attempt by what's left of the leadership of this disgusting, evil regime to show some kind of defiance. Well, we'll see how that goes when there's another week that goes on of American and Israeli bombing attacks. What we've got to hope for is that there will be some elements of this regime that can come up with some kind of we can do business with person for the West, and or then that the people will in some way start to rise up. I know that the exiled Shah, whom I've met by the way, has a kind of transitional plan. There's some great case scenarios of what could happen. And of course, there are some bad scenarios as well. The one thing I would say is, regardless of who the supreme leader is, that we are always guilty in analysing these things of fighting the last war.
Yes.
And just because Iraq and Iran sound very similar, they're very different in all sorts of ways. And when people are worried, rightly worried, about the things that went wrong in Iraq, partly, by the way, because the Iranian regime were funding all the rebellions there, this is very different and may end up in different ways. And so we should be clear-eyed about that now that all this has started.
Indeed. You did drop in there the exiled Shah who I've met by. It's amazing you bump into at Soho House these days, isn't it? So you've met the exiled Shah. How did that happen?
Well, we were just down Greg's, and I thought you'd want that last sausage roll. No. There was a meeting a few years ago, and he was sort of canvassing opinions and popularity and what people in Britain were thinking about this. See, he's upped his game in recent years in the United States and pushing for this stuff. But it's remarkable that the people on the streets are spontaneously calling out his name and his picture, I think, because they remember the sort of good times, as it were, under the Shah. Okay, his father was not a terribly nice guy in some ways, but that was one of the freest places to be a woman and to read and have free speech of some issues, and the economy was better and all that sort of stuff. We forget that Iran was, a very, very Western country, and it could be, again, as the Shah, exiled Shah himself says, it could have been and should have been the South Korea of the region, and instead it's become the North Korea of the region.
And finally, this is an absolute stunner. This civil service analysis shows a striking disparity. Employees are 12 times more likely to die in service than be dismissed for poor performance. Despite years of reforms to improve standards, poor performance dismissal is extremely rare, with some departments firing as few as 1 in 10,000. Apparently Reform UK, however, would change this. Have a listen to Danny Kruger.
So I can announce today that a Reform government will reduce the number of FTE civil servants by 68,500 roles.
So they're going to go for it. We know that you've almost got to commit second-degree murder to lose your job in the civil service. And I've told a friend of mine had a brief job in the civil service, James, and there was a fella there, and they caught this bloke was a drunk, and he kept drinking, and they kept finding him. You know what Parliament's like. It's this labyrinth. There's all sorts of little offices. You don't even realise where they are. And they eventually caught this fellow. And I've got to be very careful how I say this because it is daytime radio, but they caught this guy in an office with a laptop, looking at something on a laptop, absolutely smashed, and how can I put it? Tickling Yoda behind the ears, I think is the polite way to put it. I think that covers the Ofcom guidelines. And they call this guy, and so obviously he was taken into his line manager. They went, mate, it's really bad. You're drunk, you're looking at porn, and you're doing that as well. This can't go on, but we are going to give you one more chance. Really? And so they gave him another chance, and they just found him in a different office, 2 weeks later, doing exactly the same thing. And eventually they settled on, let's just move him to another department. So he was never seen again, but he did keep a job. Even that doesn't involve your removal from your job. If that doesn't, I don't know what does.
Well, as Adam Smith said, that mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent. All the people that chap was working with having to, should we put it delicately, pick up his slack.
Yeah.
It's totally unfair on them and totally unfair on the rest of us being taxed. Made that person's job. And this is what happens. Even people who are well performing in the civil service, if they want to get a pay rise, they have to change their jobs at the moment, and not just staying in that same department. You have to move from doing sewage policy at the Environment Department to apprenticeships in education to missile procurement in the MOD in order to get those kind of pay rises. And so the whole idea of a permanent bureaucracy, a permanent Rolls-Royce civil service is totally nonsense in some ways, because people keep flitting around so much, just as it seems the ministers do as well.
And what was curious about this particular character as well is it took about 5 weeks before anybody noticed he wasn't even there. I mean, that in itself is quite telling. And then when they realised, they all went hunting for him, and eventually they're phoning home. His wife's going, no, he's definitely at work. He definitely left the work, and his pass said that he'd entered the building, so he must be somewhere. He just wasn't where he was meant to be. Listen, James, great to have you on as ever. We will speak again very soon. James Price, former government special advisor, with us on the programme. Over to you. We've got two very distinct questions here. How do we achieve social cohesion. This is reference to the government's new initiative to get everybody doing a bit of kumbaya, whatever faith you are, whatever religion. They're going to throw millions of pounds into this, a resilience fund for the Pride in Place programme to get everybody proud and British and all in one nice, tidy, unified group. Really? Dream on, government. So that's one question. How do we achieve that? And how can the UK ensure energy security? Talk to me about the bills that are going to be on the rise. Talk to me about the forecourt where it's already on the rise. Lines are open on all of this. 0344 499 1000. We are going to be speaking to one very experienced voice, in fact two experienced voices, but for very different reasons. Tom Sharp is a former Royal Navy commander. He's going to be with us to put some meat on the bones about that blockade and what is happening. And Gwaine Towler, board member for Reform UK, very passionate on drill, baby, drill. We'll talk to him too. Lines are open. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
25 to 2. So let's dig into this a little more. The Middle East crisis poses a domestic political threat to Keir Starmer, of course, because back home, Mr. Starmer is talking about the cost. We've got the cost of living crisis. We're sorting it out. We're addressing it. This might be well out of his hands now. He's acknowledged fears that the crisis in the Middle East could raise energy bills as oil is expected to exceed $100 a barrel after Iran's effective blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. So that's where we're at the moment on this. We'll talk to Gwaine Towler in a second, but first, Tom Sharp, former Royal Navy commander, is with us. I know you've written about this as well. And good afternoon to you, Tom. I mean, just give us an overview, if you can, of what we're talking about here, what this blockade looks like. Is it surmountable? And what is your assessment of how long we're likely to be in this kind of rather lethal stalemate when it comes to energy?
I think that's a really important point. This conflict is coming to us, whether we like it or not. This is not an over there problem, as many perceive the problems at sea to be. This is definitely coming our way through bills. So the blockade was quite happened very quickly, and it happened with a couple of strikes and a rude VHF radio message, and that pretty much did it right from the start. Then there was a surge of strikes, about 7 in a day, and since then we've seen maybe a couple of strikes. And this is Iran using drones, low-level drones, to fire into the strait and hit ships. So we're getting about 1 or 2 a day. And that has basically stopped shipping, with the exception of a few Iranian ships and the odd person who's prepared to do the dash.
Yeah.
And this is having a huge effect on the whole market. So, to clear that, to get that confidence back into shipping, which is the end state here, could take a potentially very long time, because Iran has so many different types of threat down there that it could still use and hasn't yet used.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because their military hardware is not, it's not going to be up there. No one's going to be taking it to one of those trade shows and saying, buy this, it's the best you could get. However, small as it is, these kind of almost Argos-like drones are creating havoc because they're able to do those little jobs for the Iranians and cause pretty substantial knock-on effects.
And militarily, they have the effect of absorbing Defender missiles. So THAAD, for example, the very expensive, I think about 12 million a shot, ground-to-air interceptor missile that the Americans have. Some estimates have them down to about 50% stockpiles. I mean, this is very important because if that reaches zero, then it doesn't matter how bad the thing they're firing at you is, it gets through.
Yeah.
Politically, or in terms of trade, it doesn't really matter how bad that thing is either. And we know this from the Houthis. I mean, we had an 18-month case study in what this looks like. Trickle feeding strikes. They don't need to be very good for shipping to lose confidence. Of course, in the Bab el-Mandeb, in the Red Sea, there's an alternative route. The key thing with Hormuz is there is not. And so that blockage has to be cleared. And it has to really be cleared in the next 2 or 3 weeks, or prices are going to really skyrocket.
Yeah, I mean, they're already clearly going to rocket, but by dint of this, what at the moment is being looked at as a delay. But as you rightly say, if it hasn't got to go on much longer for this to be, a really, really tricky time for other countries, but particularly us, Tom, because we're in almost the worst possible position.
We're an island nation. 90% of everything in our house comes by sea, whether that's energy through the Strait of Hormuz or via other pipelines under the sea or critical undersea infrastructure or just day-to-day goods. Everything comes by the sea. And that's what makes the 30-year decline in resourcing our defense in total, but also our Navy, very frustrating. And I get why it happened in the peace dividend. I understand it. I didn't agree with it. It's one of the reasons perhaps I left the Navy, but I got it. Now those excuses have gone. We have to turn the taps open on the resources for defence. And that's not just to sort of open the sluice gates and hope for the best, or we would quickly become like a mini NHS in terms of wastefulness. In fact, we already are. Yeah. Turn it on, spend it better, and recruit and retain more people. Those three things need to happen all at once and now.
So we've literally got a double bubble of doom here. We've got energy bills, obviously they will be affected, but also, filling up your car, that's also going to take a hit too, and in fact it already is.
Yep, and I think the predicted drop in interest rates may now not happen. I mean, like I say, this is coming to us, and the problem is to fix it, to get into the straight and open it up again. You're putting yourself right in harm's way against an array of threats. We know about their ballistic missiles and their drones. We've seen a lot of that already in this conflict. Yeah. We haven't seen anything from their fast attack craft, of which they have, over 2,500. And these aren't moored up in naval bases waiting to be struck. These are in people's garages, up thousands of miles of coastline, and they've practiced this for decades. So we haven't seen them. We haven't seen the mini-sub threat, the Gadir mini-sub. Those things are lethal and quite well run. Horrible bits of kit, but they have heavyweight torpedoes. Sure. So you can't go into the strait until they're neutralized. And then finally, of course, mines. And mines is the one that makes everyone the most nervous because it takes so long to get rid of them.
Tom, while you're with us, and you did sort of allude to it there, just give us your overview of what you think is, from a military perspective. You've been a commander in the Royal Navy. You know this terrain very well. You know the sea better than you know the land, I would imagine, in your amazing career. Certainly when I was a kid, I remember there was a programme about the Ark Royal on TV, and it was, I remember we sat around and watched this thing. I sent off for the literature to the Royal Navy to get the details. I don't want to sound too loose here, but I also sent to the RAF and the Army as well. No. But I was having a go. I know, I'm sorry. But I had a little look because I thought this naval Ark looks pretty darn good. It looks like hard work, but it looks like, real challenging stuff. But at that time, even in such a, relatively speaking, a short period of time, when we were almost reigning supreme on the seas, and this huge naval global dominance was still there, in our lifetimes. Where has it really gone? How has it disappeared?
It really was. 55,000 people when I joined the Navy. We had an entire squadron of 3 ships just for young officer and artificer training, and it went round and round the world.
Wow.
Yes, I mean, what we've done in the last 30 years is the funding has been reduced, but we are our own worst enemy in defence at pursuing sort of exquisite, beautiful equipment. Every senior officer wants the next shiny bit of kit. So we've become very bad at maintaining what I'm calling the sort of B team level, the one below that, the one that can do the majority of naval tasking does not involve shooting missiles out of the sky. It's a minute percentage. But if you spend every single penny you have on that contingency, you eradicate the rest of it. And that's where we are today. So we need to make much better use of SMEs and the ability to build things in barns in Wiltshire and get them to sea and get them working. And things like the Type 31 frigate, the light frigate, we need to be much, much better at doing that, because there is no more money.
Yep.
I mean, this government has made it as clear as they possibly can while saying they're spending more. That's just bookkeeping.
Yep.
There is, until the Treasury completely, or are ordered to by the Prime Minister, reverse this decline, we are status quo, and that means actually in real terms we're getting less money. So we've got to spend what we have much, much better, and that involves, you know, British jobs, British companies, all the things that you said in the segment just prior to me coming on. We've got to be better at that, and yet we're beholden to the Americans still. We keep buying their stuff and spending a fortune and ending up at the back of the queue, and so on and so forth. So yeah, we've got to reverse this decline. We can't just pump in money. We've got to be smart about how we do it. But you know, and here we are in a crisis, having these weaknesses exposed, because they never arrive when the sun's shining, do they? It's always,
well, indeed, yeah. And I kind of guess, you know, the politicians over the years have just gone, well, you know, we're not going to really need it that desperately anymore. Those days are gone. They might not have said that out loud, but you kind of think that was probably their thinking in some respect. And of course, you don't respond when the emergency happens. It's prior to that. Hopefully those days can return. And listen, Tom, great to have you on with us, sir. We will speak again, I hope. Tom Sharp, OBE, former Royal Navy commander. Thank you to him. Can we return to those halcyon days in our military? And in this case, he's obviously talking about the naval aspect of it. But politicians over the years have just kind of let it drift a bit, right? What do we do in terms of energy? Well, some people have been shouting about it for years. Gwaine Towler, board member with Reform UK and political strategist, joins us now on this point. We know the famous Donald Trump line that he comes out with almost, well, he used to say it almost on a daily basis. Remember this, Gwaine?
Oh, yeah.
Drill, baby, drill. He loved a bit of that, didn't he? So do we need to get back to that, or are there other ways that we can find ourselves rescuing this country out of what is clearly a looming crisis?
Well, I mean, yes, we do have to get back to that, but are there other ways? Well, we have to understand that no matter how cuddly you are, the world is still operating using hydrocarbons, and will do for a long time yet. And we have deliberately, over the last 20 to 30 years, just as your previous guest was talking, we've been deliberately de-arming ourselves and defanging ourselves. We've also been deliberately making sure that we can't compete on the global market. And when there is an oil shock, ever since the 70s oil shock, initially we did well in the North Sea, but since then we've been doing the opposite. And people talk about the global price. Yeah, fine. Okay, there are global prices, but how does that explain why we have to pay 4 times as much for industrial power and for normal heating? That's in part because of the energy profits levy. That gives a headline tax rate for those extracting hydrocarbons from the UK of 78%. Is it any surprise that it's very expensive to do and very expensive to the consumer? We have to stop doing that. The government has basically banned, there was the 2 oil fields in the North Sea that they banned us looking at. They stopped us doing so. The fashion for net zero has meant that our major banks have stopped providing investments and providing loans for oil exploration and hydrocarbon exploration companies. You can't get a loan if you want to dig a hole in the North Sea to check what's there. That's crazy. This is a deliberate, long-term, strategic policy to impoverish ourselves and to put us at the risk of foreign situations. That's our own fault.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the military, We have voted for this. We want to have welfare over defence.
Yep.
And any government, any party that wishes to stand up and say, no, we've got to be tough about this, we've got to be harsh, will be accused of being unkind and unfair. And that is what has happened. So politicians have run scared. We've created a dependency culture, not one that is resilient, not one that wishes to defend who we are. And that is our own fault.
Yeah. And on the point of specifically energy, Gwen, I mean, if tomorrow, for example, a new government, let's say Reform UK, were in power, they've talked about fracking, they've talked about re-exploring the North Sea and all sorts of other avenues. That's great, and there'd be a lot of support for that. But of course, these things can't happen in 24 hours. So whatever initiative Reform or anyone else wants to put in or explore, you've got to be in for the long haul, and that could be years.
It could be, but if you basically allow people to invest, that would be a start.
Yep.
It's not going to happen overnight. We're going to have to suck this one up. But there are the reserves out there. You've got the situation. We are now plastering our countryside with solar farms that do not provide the energy we need. We're demanding everybody drives and goes electric. But where does the electric power come from? It comes from power stations.
Of course.
And we're not allowed to have power stations. This is crackers. This government stopped us opening the coal mine up in Barrow. But it does want to, near where I am here in Wiltshire. The plan is for a multi-thousand-acre solar farm that will destroy landscape, destroy the countryside, destroy farming. And this all comes together. Defence, energy, food security, resilience. It's all of a piece. And yet every single aspect of it has been undermined and damaged by successive governments. We can't lay it all. I like to blame Ed Miliband for most of the bad things in this world.
Yes, no
but in
bad
this
thing.
case, I cannot blame him for everything because he is merely building on the shoulders of pygmies. And that is what we've had in our political class for far too long.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I can remember conversations with, I guess it would have been under the old Labour government, and latterly the kind of coalition, when people talked about nuclear power, just as an example, they were like, "Oh no, it's going to take 20 years to do that." Well,
we can't have a new power station because it'll take 10 years. That was more than 10 years ago.
That was it was
idiot.
Yeah, I'm literally thinking of a speech I heard 26 years ago, when we could have had a proliferation of these units around the country. The most nuclear stations in this country right now, as I'm sure you know, are owned by the French anyway. We could have had our own. We would have been independent. Job done. We wouldn't be sitting here looking at what's happening in Iran.
This is why Reform are talking about taking a stake in Rolls-Royce, so we can help them create the market to produce their small nuclear reactors that can be brought in at much quicker speed. We need to ensure that our planning stops being so ridiculous. I mean, it's not just airports, it's not just the HS2, it's every aspect of our industrial planning strategy is for the birds. Oh, actually, no, it's for the bats, isn't it? It's all the crested newts. And our forefathers and our grandchildren will look at this time in our British politics and just wonder what on earth took hold of our senses. There's no strategic thought and there's no historic thought.
Indeed.
It's astonishing.
Gwen, always good to have you on. Thank you. Common sense stuff from Gwen Towler. He's a board member with Reform UK, been around the party from its very beginning, a political strategist. And I think anyone listening to that, surely it doesn't matter if you're a left-wing, right, wherever you are in politics, you would support that idea, wouldn't you? OK, let's get this thing moving. It's going to be a big plan. It's going to be ambitious. It's going to be expensive, but it has to be done. Why did they not do that? I remember Cameron talking about it and Blair and others. But nuclear would take too long and it would all be done by now. All of these things would be done by now and we'd be sitting here in a rather safe haven with energy security. And now we haven't got that. So how can we ensure energy security? And we're also talking social cohesion as well. 0344 499 1000.
he is a weak, spineless coward of a man. He's a you know, I know it's an old adage, but he's a lawyer, not a leader. He's had a whole career of never forming an opinion, following law, international law, and following orders from others, never having to form the opinion himself. If he'd come out and said he was ideologically disposed to not wanting to go to war with Iran because, you know, he supports the Muslim vote in the UK, we all know it's the truth, but at least he'd have the backbone to come out and say it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 522. Let's get some calls. Georgina starts us off down in London. Georgina, what are you making of it all? Good afternoon.
Well, good afternoon, Ian. Of course, this Iran war is going to push up the cost of living. War always does, Ian. The last war, we were given ration books where 2 ounces of butter had to last you a week. We didn't have any meat and no petrol whatsoever. But the even more monumental price would have to be paid by the failure to crush this tyrannical regime. As this regime and its medieval ideologies are spreading like cancer throughout our Western world, and it's got to be stopped. An even bigger price will be paid by the servicemen and women that will be maimed or worse by this war, and we should be there to help them, watching their backs the way they're watching ours. Instead, our warship is still in Portsmouth and ready to play its part, and the rest of our military defences, what we do have, are totally inadequate and outdated. This is a situation that's got to be remedied immediately. We are, in essence, unready for any kind of military conflict, and I never thought that this would ever be the case with our great nation. We are totally vulnerable and unable at this present time to defend ourselves, and this is a precarious position for us to be in. It's not our flags, Ian, that are tools of hate in our country. It's our governments. They have betrayed each and every one of us. We know Starmer has been dragging his feet, not wanting to get involved in the Iran conflict. He was proud to say so, and he's proud to say this. He had nothing to do with the strikes in Iran to his Muslim constituents at a banquet for Afar only last week. He may be proud of our lack of intervention in this conflict, but he's made us look weak and cowardly because of his lack of leadership. I would like to think that maybe this could be the incentive for this government to spend more on our military defences, but sadly, they are more preoccupied with DEI, net zero, and the ever-increasing welfare bill than our country's safety and border security. We now find ourselves cap in hand, yet again, begging for help from other countries to watch our back. I don't think Britannia has ever been so unable to defend herself. She certainly does not rule the waves anymore, Ian. And I am at this point in time ashamed of the way this Prime Minister has handled this situation. He's a waste of space and neither use nor ornament. And we don't just have to get rid of this Prime Minister, we have to get rid of the whole Labour government.
I'm reliably, I mean, great thorough stuff as ever, Georgian. I'm reliably informed that both of our soldiers are ready to serve if required. Do you think it will get to that point that we will be sending, in this particular war, we'll be sending physically boots onto the ground in Iran?
If it's needed, Ian, then we must do our bit. Boots on the ground, planes in the air, ships on the sea, if we have them. My God, my love, I'm an old girl, and I would fight my bit. I would go and fight myself for freedom of our country, even at my age.
Well, it's noble to hear that as well, Georgina. Thank you very much indeed, Georgina, down in London. David is in Uxbridge. What have you got for us, David? Afternoon to you.
Hello. Hi, thanks. Basically, the problem is that you know, we're constantly creating situations where we have vulnerable infrastructure. For example, oil refineries and so on. I mean, you can just take a couple of missiles and then the whole thing's out. And what we really could do with is a fuel which is it's safe, and you can keep it in the house, and you can maybe have like 5 years supply of it and so on. And what I'm suggesting is that we need to go back to a predominantly carbon-based economy, rather than the hydrogen economy and this and that and the other. We should be running on carbon. Now, carbon, if you think of something like anthracite or charcoal, we can extract that from the atmosphere. We can extract the carbon dioxide, turn it into carbon briquettes or something which people would have and they'd burn in the house or generate electricity from it or whatever, or it would go into local electric generation. And that would remove a lot of carbon from the atmosphere, put it into storage, and you could have like 5 years of energy available to you. So you've got to, if you want to pull a fast one and invade a country, they're going to be, you're not going to have anything to attack, because you're going to have to take out each individual house and so on. You can build it up over years, and it's great because it takes it out the atmosphere.
So it achieves that. So it kind of achieves an environmental goal as well as anything else, and energises us. Listen, David, thank you very much indeed for that. Is that going to be a case of actually just finding, you know, Ed Miliband's windmills and panels? They might do a bit on the right day for your house if you're heating up your place and it works for you. Fantastic. En masse. Have we just got to look for a completely different source of energy, and quickly? The world is not getting safer anytime soon. 0344 499 1000. How do we ensure energy security for this country? And separate question, how do we achieve social cohesion? Let's get the news at 2 o'clock.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yes, welcome back. It is the home of Common Sense. We are, of course, specifically responding to the possibility of an energy crisis. We're already seeing things soar on forecourts. What about the domestic agenda? Keir Starmer's put a lot into this. There is a blockade in Iran's Strait of Hormuz. That blockade is causing a massive problem, and this country is more vulnerable than just about any other. The UK is highly vulnerable to this particular issue, foreign gas costs, etc. And apparently we've only got 2 days of reserves should everything go pear-shaped. Your thoughts on that? How can we ensure energy security in this country? Also this afternoon, over the weekend, Iran has named Khamenei, it's the son of the former Ayatollah, as the new supreme leader. I mean, nice work if you can get it. Who's got the job? Oh, his son, his lad's got it, hasn't he? The recent killings, of course, of the most of the family members mean fewer people have more intense personal reasons to fiercely resist America than this man and, of course, reject any compromises or surrender. Mr. Trump has already said, only a surrender will do for us. And the government has launched a new social cohesion action plan to strengthen community ties and shared values. These initiatives include measures to combat extremism, notably in universities and the charity sector. Well, good luck with that, Steve Reed and this government. We shall watch with interest. Popcorn at the ready, kids. 0344 499 1000. Only last week, we talked about it yesterday. I was filling in on Sunday's mid-morning show. There was another kind of protest thing. It wasn't massive, but it was significant enough for anybody to be a bit worried. Protests in Birmingham. These are sort of pro-Iranian, pro-terror people. In fact, even a former terrorist went to the protest. In this country, by the way. We're not talking about Tehran. In Birmingham. I know that won't surprise many people. We know what happened with the football match a couple of months back. So that was going on. Last Wednesday, I think it was, in Manchester, there was about 800 people showed up to this thing. Then you had all those universities who were, their special clubs, who were mourning the death of the Supreme. This is in the UK. So if Steve Reed and the government are serious about social cohesion, then firstly, anyone who's out on the streets mourning the death of the former Ayatollah, hoover them up, stick them in a pair of cuffs and bang them in clink. So that's the first thing. Any university that is celebrating this regime, this is an Islamist terror regime, okay, that runs Iran. That is just a demonstrable fact, not an opinion. That is who they are. The greatest country of state-sponsored terrorism anywhere. Hezbollah, Houthis, Hamas, you name it. Their paw prints are all over it. And you've got students in the UK who are mourning the death of the man who orchestrated it all. Seriously, that's where we're at. So when Steve Reed, the Communities and Housing Secretary, says, "Oh no, we're going to sort this out. We've got some money to put into a big pot to get everybody singing Kumbaya, so we can all get along together and respect and join in with each other's cultures." Seriously? Why don't you start what's looking you in the face, Mr. Reed, right now? Put a stop to it. Put a stop to it quickly, because on any other day of the week, it might just be sort of Monty Python-esque laughable. It's not. It's flipping lethal. It's dangerous. And these people live among us. 0344 499 1000. And on that point, I mean, I did mention a little while back that other leaders over the years have talked about this. It's worth another play of the initiative to combat extremism, remember, notably in universities and the charity sector. This was raised 11 years ago by the then Prime Minister, David Cameron.
We also need to do more in education. We undertook an immediate review when it became apparent that extremists had taken over some of our schools in the so-called Trojan horse scandal here in Birmingham. But I have to be honest here, 1 year on, although we're making progress, it's not quick enough. It's taken too long to take action against the governors and teachers involved in the scandal and to support the schools affected to turn themselves around.
I reckon I could do that in half an hour. You see that university over there? Right, they've got some real wrong-uns in there. They're very public about it, don't worry. OK, Francis, wrong-un number 1, 2, 3, out. End of. That'll be the beginning. Let's get to work with David Shipley, investigative journalist, regularly helps us out with a variety of issues. David, always good to see you. Thank you for coming on. I mean, it is one of those, it's sort of classic. You can imagine the civil service going, why don't we pull out the social cohesion policy? It's been sitting there in the filing cabinet. We dust it down every few years and give it another airing, and let's see how it works out. Nothing ever happens. In fact, I think you could maybe construct a case to say things have got worse in terms of social cohesion. And here it is again today. Steve Reed and others in the government making this big announcement. We need to be more understanding, respect each other's values, join in with each other's culture. Good luck with that. And here we go for the umpteenth time. It's a new initiative of something that's been tried multiple times. What do you say?
I think that analysis is very accurate. I would add that what's really interesting in this case is they seem to have given up on the idea of the British nation as a unified polity. So what you see through this is this idea that by bringing individual communities a bit closer together, by throwing money at them and hopefully getting people to like their neighbours a bit more, this will somehow solve things and we'll end up with hundreds or thousands of communities under the crown. It's not going to work. And I think what's interesting is it's all grounded in this idea of pushing values and pushing, a little bit of money into communities and getting people to paint murals on walls. What is actually making the country less safe, less secure, more chaotic and more fractured is real material factors. It's the inflation shock that we're about to have from the war in Iran following an already very high cost of living. It's the high house prices, low wages, caused in great part by mass migration. It's waves of migrant crime. It's the fact that just putting lots of communities alongside each other that don't really have anything in common does create discord. And all of these are real material factors. And the British government that we currently have in the state is just not willing to do anything about those. So we get this kind of policy where they feel they've got to be seen to be doing something. And it will fail.
It will indeed, and it's interesting what you said at the beginning there, David, that this idea of kind of, the best of British and, we're all British and be British, let's at least aim to be British, that's kind of gone, and they've just subtly changed the tone of this.
Yeah, and there's a really interesting bit, one of the comments that David Lammy has given, is he said, this is about a patriotic renewal of our communities. Communities don't grow stronger and closer by accident. They need support to thrive. Well, the thing is, actually, English villages, Welsh towns, Scottish towns, all did grow into communities entirely naturally, didn't need the government to do it. What is being admitted there very quietly is actually when you create these forced communities where you throw people from all over the world who don't share culture or faith or language into an area, those groupings won't form naturally into communities. And it's quite interesting, I think the government is starting to accept that fundamentally multiculturalism doesn't work.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it would be... I suppose no politician, David, it's certainly not one in government, is going to ever stand up and say, this multiculturalism thing has just failed. We've got lots of people from different cultures, but the idea there's sort of any kind of cultural parity is, in certain areas, not all, is clearly a myth. And no one will say that out loud for fear of being accused of, I suppose, either being divisive, defeatist, whatever they want to call it. They just won't say that. And, when you look at some elements of, and I'm bound to pick up on the Islamic element because it's the second biggest religion in the country, that would be clearly the go-to example for that reason, if no other. Then I think we could see a lot of examples there where it would be improbable, if not impossible, that anybody would be adopting bits of that culture and suggesting that that's the way, sensible way forward to get us all into one kind of kumbaya massive.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, some belief systems and cultures are inherently exclusionary of others. You can't simultaneously be a Muslim and a Christian. There are different rules, different requirements. And I think also there may have been a time where people could integrate. And if we think about waves of migration into the US in the 19th and 20th centuries, those groups did eventually integrate after some time. I suspect now, in the era of the smartphone, integration is either impossible or close to impossible, because groups which move to the UK have infinite contact with their families, their friends back home. There's no impetus to integrate. And when we have particularly large groups of these new communities coming here, they do tend to stay amongst themselves. And so I think if integration ever was possible into one new nation, I don't think it is with the kind of migration mix we have now and the technology we have now.
Yeah, indeed. David, on that point, thank you very much. Always great to have you on with us. David Shipley, investigative journalist, on the improbability, if not impossibility, of Steve Reed's utopian dream that the UK is a multi-ethnic, diverse society and we should celebrate each other's cultures and traditions and show... So hang on. Is he explicitly saying the Housing and Communities and Local Government Secretary of State for this government is saying that I am meant to celebrate other cultures and traditions? I think that's what he said, because it literally is written like that. I'm not misquoting him. Shared values, well, I think most religions, whether you're a Christian, a Jew, a Hindu, a Muslim, whatever, do tend to have sort of the basics in common. You know, don't nick stuff, don't sleep with your mate's missus, and try not to kill anyone if you can. That's broadly, I think, goes across faiths. There are, of course, notable exceptions within some of those faiths, but you take the point. I don't sense that I've got much in common with Islam, and again, that's the go-to example because it is not just the second biggest religion in this country, it is a faster growing religion in this country. So why would I not use that as an example? Do I sense that there's any kind of cultural connections with that religion? No, I don't. I find it to be a very distant thing from where I am and where I sit as a person. I don't disrespect it. I don't deny other people's right to practice it. I don't believe I should be coerced into adopting any of it. And I would say that for, you know, I'm not about to become a Sikh or a partial Hindu. I don't think there's going to be a moment where I say every Friday I become a Jew because, you know, the Friday night dinner seems like a good idea. I don't think that's about to happen, right? So what does he mean by this idea of adopting, celebrating each other's cultures and traditions and shared values? We must listen to people's concerns about growing divisions and take action to bring our communities back together. It says back together. Back together. No, the community was never together in this form, ever. OK, that's not been the case. Similar cultures, similar values can be together. But if you are celebrating and practicing something that is way out there, then you're not going to be bringing that together. I mean, for that, I don't imagine the Mormons are going to get much luck either on those adopting parts of their faiths. In the interest of balance, I say that. 0344 499 1000. Matthew is in Warrington. What have you got for us, Matthew? Afternoon to you.
Yeah, afternoon, Ian. Hope you're well, mate.
I'm good.
Basically, I don't want to understand people's cultures whereby the wives walk 10 feet behind them. They have first cousin marriage. They don't believe in other faiths and religions, have zero tolerance of it. That is not what we're about as British people. I do want to understand people why they have Ramadan and the reasons behind it, and Eid and Jewish religion. I do want to understand it, become a better person for understanding it. But these people that are extremists don't want to take us on. They don't want to understand our Christianity.
Yeah.
Our faiths, our beliefs. And it's wrong. We're getting it pushed down our throats that we're all together in this together, and we're not. The integration has not happened. People have just come here and they've been left to bring their way of thought and ideology into their societies and their communities.
Well, when you look at, you remember the school teacher in Batley who...
Exactly.
You know, and the crowds, the hundreds of people that assembled outside the school who wanted this man essentially jailed. I think some of them wanted him killed. Now lives in hiding. A flipping teacher lives in hiding because of that. I mean, that's not multiculturalism. I don't imagine that element of their community there has changed one bit.
No, and they don't want to. There was a thing on TikTok. There was a gentleman in my hometown of Warrington. He was giving some stick to some Asian lads who were talking about the Quran. And I've got no problem with that. He says, we've got freedom of speech. Please, by all means, stand in the town and preach your gospel word. I've got no problem with that. I had a problem with a young man giving him abuse because that's not what we're about. That makes him racist in my eyes. He doesn't have to listen to it. He can walk away from it. And the same as these people on the side of Islam. If he wants to talk about the Bible, as long as it's, I wouldn't do it outside a mosque. But if you want to stand in your high street and pray, cause you remember back in the day, you go a football match and there'd be a guy there with a big hat and a board over his chest saying, the end is nigh and God will see us all in hell. And, and you always got that. At every football match, rugby match, there's always some there giving out the gospel. You don't get that now because we're not as religious as we used to be. Yeah. And we've got to live side by side with each other. I've got no problem. I see people from all religions every day, just like me, middle-aged man, young kids, go to school, and we all want the best. We all want we want our children to succeed. We want to work hard, play hard, and have a holiday. And that's what we should that's what we should be telling people.
Well, of course we should. We shouldn't have people. We saw it. We revealed it on this station. The guys in Whitechapel in East London, Matthew, saying this is a Muslim area. I mean, really? Seriously?
With Britain, this is a British area, and by all means, you're
flipping East End. I know it's changed, and it's always changed, but we are talking about a significant cultural shift in that respect. Matthew, I've got to run, just because we've overshot, but thank you. Great call. And Matthew, I just thought spoke brilliant sense on that point. You can... Again, he had to qualify it there, didn't he? He said a couple of times, you don't want to... We don't want to hear racism. No one wants to hear that. I mean, that's not... You can wear two hats on this. You can have a very specific and passionate belief in the culture of this country and what it should be, whilst also respecting others. And if somebody is going rogue with their faith, like Matey in Whitechapel, you can call it. It doesn't make you a mad racist because you call it out. Some bloke going this. Well, we had it in Birmingham as well, didn't we, with the football? So this is our territory. It's our get in the bin, mate. It's not your territory. Not at all. What do you mean by that, by the way? I mean, that's got a lot of connotations to it. 0344 499 1000. Kevin says, reference the new supreme leader in Iran. How did they talk him into being the new Ayatollah? Hey, there's a really good chance you're going to get taken out by a Tomahawk missile. Oh, yes, please. Job sounds fantastic and dandy to me. It's a good point, isn't it? But I guess this... So what are the chances? Run the chances by me again, please. OK, it's 99%. Because that's obviously how they talk. You're going to be taken out by Tuesday. Yeah, I'll take it. It's worth the risk, isn't it? Because I get some slaves to work with me in the meantime. These people are, theologically wedded to the cause, I suppose. A rather skew-if form of what would have been their own faith. 0344 499 1000. Back with more from you coming next on Talk.
He is a weak, spineless coward of a man. He doesn't. He's you know, I know it's an old adage, but he's a lawyer, not a leader. He's had a whole career of never forming an opinion, following law, international law, and following orders from others. Never having to form the opinion himself. If he'd come out and said he was ideologically disposed to not wanting to go to war with Iran because, you know, he supports the Muslim vote in the UK, we all know it's the truth, but at least he'd have the backbone to come out and say it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. This in from Paul in Fife, who says, this is about the oil. We're told oil is now $100 a barrel and prices will be going through the roof because of the Iran conflict. Sorry, the Iran war would not be a factor in our domestic oil prices if crazy Miliband hadn't stopped all the drilling in the North Sea. Yeah, it would have been a bit of an assistance, wouldn't it? If he didn't just stop it. It kind of was covering it, sticking cement down oil wells, and it completely, I mean, evangelical approach to this. I think in years to come, people will be talking about Mad Ed. Who was Mad Ed? Kids in the playground in 200 years' time. It'll become a playground name. Mad Ed. He's a Mad Ed. Who's that named? Oh, there was a politician back in like the 20s, the 2020s, called Ed Miliband. He went absolutely Looney Tunes on us with solar panels and windmills. Steve in East Yorkshire says, how do we get social cohesion? Well, we had social cohesion before mass immigration, shared culture, values and history. Yes, I mean, you can't remove one from the other. It's just a fact, isn't it? And there has to be a dominant culture. There has to be a point when you don't do what the Steve, you know, we can all celebrate each other's differences and religions and cultures. You have to go, no, this is the culture, right? This is what we do. This is what we believe. And anyone else that wants to run away with their fairy tale ideas of life or death, keep it to yourself, because you're not going to get recognised here. You're not going to be sitting around any impressive powwow with government leaders, because that's not our culture. But politicians are scared witless to say it. Andrew's in Hertfordshire. Andrew, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Great to hear your happy voice. Look, just on that little point you made there in relation to Ed Miliband.
Yeah.
Omar Sharif in Dr. Zhivago, when they ask why they killed the Russian royal family, smashed them up and threw them down a well, he said to show there was no going back. And that's what Miliband demonstrated when he demanded that INEOS fill in the fracking wells in the middle of the country, so there was no going back. And it shows he's a true communist in his mentality.
Interesting.
And all communists, the greatest sin committed against people under a communist regime is not done by their enemies, it's done by the people in charge of them. And his policy on energy is going to kill the country in relation to this war. In relation to Steve Reed and that policy, it doesn't apply to you, Ian, or me, or anybody listening to this that is British. If you think about it, an extremist Scientologist, or you use Mormon, they have no tolerance of anybody. So his policy is aimed at, and we know where people are going with it, extremist Muslims cannot call people, I think the expression is kafir, isn't it? They call people that are non-believers. They have to understand that to be part of this society, they must tolerate. They must tolerate, and get into a bad place here, people eating bacon, women in miniskirts, men who shave. That is the type of thing that this is aimed at. Or is it aimed at us adopting the extremist views? Let's debate.
We never, when there was the whole debate about gay marriage, and I think it was under David Cameron where it kind of moved, the policy moved to where it is now. Most people didn't really, give a monkeys about it. There were people of all religions that weren't necessarily enamoured by it, but broadly speaking, Christianity and others said, okay, it's 21st century, we live in different times than we did like 50 years ago. So thank goodness for that. But nobody ever mentioned, imagine having that debate down there in Whitechapel about gay marriage. I wonder what kind of language would be used. I wonder what kind of offerings would be entered into the debating arena. It never came up. No one ever mentioned that. No one ever said, no one ever said, well, I think there's some religions that might really have a problem with this. It never happened.
And that's where you're very good. That is the problem, and that, Starmer goes to the street once when at that funeral and gets abused. That's where politicians are not going on the street and seeing the reality. A woman needs to be able to walk down that road dressed exactly how she wants to, but she can't. And that is the intolerance problem. And society, the definition of it, there's 4 bits: family, economic institutions, political institutions, and religious institutions. They come last. We're being led by people that are putting religious institutions at the front, and it's wrong.
Yeah, it is indeed. Great call. Thank you, Andrew, for that. Let's get some more comment from you. This in from Andrea, who says, Ian, I'm absolutely disgusted that British universities are allowing rallies in support of dead mullahs. These useful idiots make me sick. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. We all sort of have confusion sometimes of a certain policy or idea, but usually you can, even if we disagree with it, you can go, okay, well, it's not my thing, but I see what they did there. I genuinely don't understand how you can have celebrations or commemorations for a dead Islamist and all that his regime stood for and continues to stand for, and has sponsored terrorism all around the world, is mostly responsible for what happens in the Middle East in terms of death and destruction. I don't know how you can get away with that, really. If you had a secret, a secret kind of KKK society over there at the University of Goodness, I can't imagine you'd get away with that, would you? Would you? Oh, we just like the white stuff here. We're all white. We just think the world is better that way. It's kind of a supreme race. Intellectually, physically, it's proven. If that kind of stuff was being said, then I reckon not only would the university be closing it down, the old bill would be called, there'd be people in cuffs, they'd be taken away, WhatsApp groups would be raided, doors would be slammed down, phones would be removed, court cases would be convened, prison sentences would be handed out. What's that for? I heard it turned out that old George was he was up to his neck in the old KKK stuff. Loved it. Love a bit of whiteness, did George. That would be, everybody would be talking about that. And rightly so. But if you do it with the Islamists in Iran, apparently it's just for freedom of speech, kids. Freedom of speech to support and mourn the death of somebody who led a medieval death cult for many years. Oh, by the way, in the last half an hour, he's killed 35,000 people. That's apparently all right. You've got Steve Reed going, you've got to embrace that culture. I appreciate that is not everyone's version of Islam. I know that. I'm not stupid. Hardly needs to be said. But we're talking about that version of Islam, or whatever version it is of whatever or wherever it came from. That, surely, that's like a big red stop sign, isn't it? No. Do not pass go. You're out of here. And the university won't get funded either for allowing it to happen. 0344 499 1000. Our lines are open. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This from Rob, who says, Rob's in Poole, says, Ian, the new Ayatollah is going to be the loneliest man in the world. Nobody's going to want to go near him, just in case one of those Tomahawk looming missiles comes over the horizon. You might think so. There you go. Your office is over there, mate. Over there? It's in another town. Yes, it is. We'll stay here. You go over. You can see it. This one in from Margaret in Edinburgh. Labour can get stuff with their community BS. Just up the road from me, there is a place I stayed, a housing estate, which in the 1960s, when it was a school, was a community. Now it's full of different newly arrived immigrants who do not integrate. Some don't speak English. I would never be racist, but I have nothing in common with them. That's the problem, isn't it? It's the side-by-side test. You don't have to have... Nobody's suggesting everyone is going to be a mad terrorist or somehow want to harm your family. There's no commonality. You've just got communities living side by side. So when Steve Reed and others wheel out this garbage about, you know, we've got to take a bit from this culture and a bit from that culture and all respect each other's and celebrate our different values and ideas, it doesn't work. It just, by definition, it doesn't and cannot work. 25 to 3. Let's look at this story. It's David Lammy back in the headlines, of course, because his plan to retrospectively remove the right to a jury trial from thousands of defendants is expected to face numerous High Court legal challenges. This is according to criminal barristers. The barristers have issued the warning before MPs vote on the second reading tomorrow of the Courts bill. So this is going to take things to a new step. Is he going to water down? What does it mean going forward? And will this nightmare ever end? And by the way, spoiler alert, David Lammy doesn't know anything about the legal system, which I think is quite key. Helen Fields is a former barrister, very passionate on this stuff. Helen, good afternoon to you.
Hi, Ian.
Nice to have you with us. I mean, where do you sense this second reading is likely to go tomorrow?
You know, I think it's on a knife edge at the moment. I know that we've got a substantial rebellion coming and lots of people who are supporting the numerous barristers, judges, everyone who's been involved in the legal system when they say that this is not in the public interest. So I don't know, it could go either way. What I'm certain about is that somehow they'll get some sort of reform through. Whether or not it gets watered down from its current state, I think we have to wait and see, but I would hope so.
Yeah. The watered-down version, is that just as bad? Because for many people, the argument is quite simple. It's a jury trial. It's the backbone of our system, exported around the globe. It works. Not everything is perfect. Nobody ever said it was. But on balance, this works, and we get rid of it at our peril. So the idea you have a sort of a slightly in, slightly out model, that for some is also unpalatable.
Yeah, and I think any criminal lawyers would agree. I think what's really interesting about this actually is that if you ask the people who work in the criminal justice system day in and day out, and that's solicitors, barristers, judges, people who really know, and you say, would you rather be forced to have a trial without a jury, or would you always choose trial with jury? They're going to choose a trial with a jury in it, because what we know and what I know from years of practice is that juries work very hard. They actually quite rarely get it wrong. They always give the benefit of the doubt when they feel they need to. And it's just this kind of insistence by David Lammy that you're dealing with offenders rather than you're dealing with suspects or accused. That's the language he keeps using. And it assumes that everybody who comes before the court is already guilty.
And I can't seem to find many lawyers and barristers that agree, you know, defenders or prosecutors, either way, that support this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think what most criminal lawyers know is that the jury system is the safest system. And it's for this reason. Even if you're prosecuting, not defending, you want a fair trial. You want a trial which isn't going to lead to endless appeals and more money, and the witnesses have to come back. For everybody's sake, the jury is the right way to do it, because every time you have legal argument, there's loads of evidence in every case that doesn't go in front of, say, a jury, and the judge looks at it and says, no, that's not safe or it's prejudicial. The problem with having only a judge, as we know because of magistrates' courts, is they have to see that evidence, then decide whether or not they're going to magically try and ignore it inside their brains, having seen it. So it's a very tricky system. But also, You know, they've come up with this magic figure of, you know, cases that might get an under 3-year sentence would not have a jury. You know, for somebody, even if it's your first offence and you're a 50-year-old man and you've been accused of stealing an expensive bottle of whiskey, it's an example David Lammy gave yesterday, then he likened it to getting a grazed knee and not needing to see an accountant, but a consultant. But the fact of the matter is that really affects your life. A criminal conviction really affects your life. It affects your family. It affects future job prospects. It affects your finances. You know, these aren't small things, and we need to take them seriously.
Indeed. I understand that the kind of backstory to all of this is about speeding up this enormous backlog, which kind of rather answers the question in itself. If we are doing something, we all support the idea of getting things moving faster, but if you're doing it just to make things quicker, then that doesn't stand up to intellectual scrutiny, let alone moral or legal scrutiny.
It doesn't. And let's be clear, at the moment in the Crown Courts, there's a backlog of about 80,000 cases. In the Magistrates' Court, there's a backlog of at least 300,000 cases. So when you add all the extra cases, which would probably be about 50%, back to the magistrates, you know, it doesn't work. It's not going to be faster. We know the magistrates are slower. They don't have legal training. They need a lawyer with them. None of this works out. And, you know, I think there's a bit of honesty required here. I'd have much more respect for David Lammy if he popped up and said, actually, we just want to save a few pennies here and there, because at least we'd feel like we were being told the truth.
Indeed. Helen, thank you very much for your time. Helen Fields, former barrister, referenced David Lammy. I mean, the fact that it comes from David Lammy, I was about to say, I don't like using that phrase with this government, you know, in fairness to Keir Starmer, in fairness to David Lammy. David Lammy didn't come up with this. The department came up with this, backed because the government charged that part of the civil service, Justice Department, find a way to speed this up. Now, the jury debate has been on the table from time to time, probably for decades, but perhaps for slightly different reasons. But Lammy himself, he's not bright enough, really, to come up. And I don't say that to be deliberately unkind. This is just not his field of expertise, as far as I can tell. So this would have been on the cards. He's inherited the problem, but then he's got to go out and then sell it like it's the best thing in the world. This was a man, and we've played the clips many times over the last year or so, that literally talked about never getting rid of juries. So he's on record of saying the very opposite to what he's now not just opining, but trying to enshrine into law. Let's go to Vernon in Staffordshire. Back to energy. Vernon, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
Ian, let's talk about David Lammy just for a second. What is his area of expertise?
Good point.
Does he have one? I know he likes to eat, but that's about it. Bless him.
Some pie. Yes, there is that. What do you think it is?
Well, for me, the man has no expertise, but he's a perfect politician.
Yeah, indeed.
You know, he's never achieved anything in his life.
Yeah.
And the depressing thought, he's a millionaire on paper, which is incredible. Says everything you need to know about politics.
Well, indeed. I mean, he got a 2-1 in law at university, so he didn't get a first, but nonetheless, you know, he did a law degree. I don't think that qualifies him for this.
No, well, he quite simply, the whole of the government, to be honest, at the moment, is not qualified for anything.
Yeah.
Listen to Stephen Reid. First question to you, why do we have to compromise? You see, if I move to a country, if I move to Dubai or anywhere else, or Poland, I have to fit in with the community. Not the community fits in with me.
Yeah.
And yet, good old Blighty, we have to fit in with everybody. No, we don't. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm not fitting in with anyone. It's my country. You come here, you're welcome. You work, you integrate.
Yep.
And it's down to you to fit in with us, not the other way around.
Simple stuff,
and
isn't it?
Stephen
Really?
Reid has no idea.
Yeah.
He's I mean, I think Stephen Reid and Bridget Phillipson, Education Secretary.
Yep.
I think they are the two most dangerous politicians. I mean, Lammy's just a fool.
Yeah.
The man's a complete buffoon, and he's what we laugh. He's comedy gold. He's only there for sort of a bit of fun in very depressing times. But Stephen Reid is very calculated. Bridget Phillipson, very calculated. But, you know, to me, David, Ian, I just wanted to point out something to you. So at this moment in time, we have little or no energy, and yet we have arguably the best oil fields in the world, in the North Sea, that we're not allowed to use. But let's get this right.
On our doorstep,
we buy from our neighbours who've got the fields next to us.
Yeah, Norway.
I mean, and that's okay?
Apparently so, yeah. But they love that. Ed Miliband's very happy about that.
But it's mad, isn't it? I mean, it's really, honestly...
I mean, even the Chinese, okay, they're doing all the windmill stuff and the panel stuff. They're doing that like, you know, like no one else is. However, they haven't been stupid enough to go, well, let's close everything else off and just concentrate on this. Even, I think, Dale Vince, the environmentalist. Now, Dale does sometimes divide the room, but I think Dale has said, you know, you keep it going in the North Sea until it runs out. And when it runs out, obviously there's a problem there. In the meantime, you can develop other technology, whether it turns out to be hydro, whether it turns out to be windmills and panels. But you don't close it off.
But Ian, this green energy, let me tell you, everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. It's so fantastic. And yet, if they were to remove the grants, I'll guarantee you every company will go running for the hills.
Yeah.
Because it's only propped up by the fact that they get investment. No one's making any money.
No.
Electric cars, no one wants them. They don't sell. They have to give them away. It's just, honestly, lunatics are running the asylum, Ian.
Well, they have been for a long time, but this particularly, they brought in the A-listers for this particular administration. So maybe we shouldn't be so surprised. Vernon, I'm going to move just to get more voices on, but thank you very much indeed for that. Ian is down in London on Iran and Miliband and what the hell is going on, Ian. Good afternoon to you.
I've got to tell you, there's a very, very good film with Alex Guinness, I think, played Hitler in it. I don't know if you ever saw it. And he was in the war room because there's a funny sort of episode where he turns around the war room and he says, right, bring in this army. I'm sorry, sir, there isn't. And you can imagine Starmer in the same sort of room going, bring in oil fields. And he looks at Miliband, oh, no, we shut them down. Then go looking over at Lammy. Okay, we'll do something with the courts to stop the arguments. No, we can't do that. And he must be looking around the room thinking, what have I got here?
Where's it all gone? Yeah.
Yeah. So you can imagine him sort of hitting the table going, we must find something. We must find something.
Yeah.
And he can't find it. Then he says, well, don't worry. Let's phone our friends, the Americans. They'll help us.
You know that Hitler, it's not a meme really, that video thing of Hitler and his men around him that keeps, gets altered depending on the subject. You know the thing I'm talking about, Fit?
That's what I'm talking about.
It's kind of like a YouTube thing where you just change it depending on what story's going on and you put the subtitles in and it all sort of kind of makes sense. It might be from Downfall, I don't know, but it's the same scene replayed and you can just make it fit to whatever your subject. You could literally do it for this.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That was the clip I was talking about. And it's like, as you said before, Lammy saying, oh, we're going to speed up the courts like by doing this. Well, straight away, I'm in court. Right, OK, you're found guilty. No, I want to appeal. So double the sort of time because now I want it with a jury.
Well, indeed.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? You've got Miliband. OK, we're going to go like that. Oh, we've got to ship it all over. I'd love him. And you said about Dale Vince saying, let's sort of let it run down. Well, if he was saying that, why didn't he push it more with his best pal, Miliband?
Well, I don't think he's got that level of influence. He's made his... I mean, I know he's a big donor, but I don't think it oddly has bought him a position around the table.
I'm certain he has. Don't think he hasn't. He has, because I think, and I know I've got to be very careful what you say. There was a tie-up with companies, and with who got contracts. So I'm sure he has.
Yeah, although the Conservatives, he got a contract under the Conservatives. I remember that much. So that's a whole different ball game. But listen, I mean, whoever's in charge, whoever is calling the shots, whoever is influencing who, the whole thing has come out as a right royal mess, Ian, because here we are with no energy independence at all.
No.
At all.
Well, there is. Sorry, you're lying.
Go on.
I shouldn't say it that way.
No, I know what you're saying.
We have we've got plenty of hot air.
There's a lot of that, yeah. We could just run. We could run the
just
place from just pipe in something into Westminster.
Yeah,
and then
that would be, keep them all going.
That'd be running the country for decades, maybe. Love it, Ian. Thank you very much indeed for that. Brad in Cambridge says we shouldn't have to dance around the fact that Calamity Lammy has the IQ of an earthworm just to be PC. He may have passed exams, but education doesn't equate to intelligence. Yeah, I mean, he is one of those guys that went to, university and did his degree in, I think I'm right in saying he did it in law and came out with like a 2-1 or something, David Lammy. So did lots of people go through. That doesn't, brilliant lawyers and barristers and those at the top of their field, did much more than that. They practiced for years. Lammy's been an MP over there in Tottenham for about 26 years. So most of his life has been as an MP, as his working life. He's in his early 50s, so yeah, he spent most of it in Parliament, not practicing law. My point is, that's fine. That's his backstory, okay? He maybe wouldn't want to change a thing, but I don't think it puts him in the driving seat for being the greatest legal mind to decide that juries should be abolished. He's not even at first base on that. He wouldn't get around a committee on that because he once studied a bit of law at university. 0344 499 1000. We'll have more from you coming next. Oh, and the voice of doom as well is back. I think it's day 3, perhaps. Is it day 3? 4. Day 4 of the latest mystery voice. Stand by for that. It's coming next on Talk.
He is a weak, spineless coward of a man. He's I know it's an old adage, but he's a lawyer, not a leader. He's had a whole career of never forming an opinion, following law, international law, and following orders from others, never having to form the opinion himself. If he'd come out and said he was ideologically disposed to not wanting to go to war with Iran because, he supports the Muslim vote in the UK, we all know it's the truth, but at least he'd have the backbone to come out and say it.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, just gone 10 to 3. That's it. Voice of Doom, day 4, mystery voice. It's political. Left wing, right wing, dead or alive. Who is this?
There's hardly any experience.
87222. If you want to have a crack, it's up to you. 87222. Here it is again.
There's hardly any experience.
And as ever, we will reveal all, but only if we get a right answer after the news at 3 o'clock. One more time.
There's hardly any experience.
87222. And it's not. What's the one that keeps coming up on this one? There's always a prominent name that comes up on each mystery voice we do, and that one's already galvanising a few. Same names keep coming up. I'll find out when we keep getting the same name again. We'll reveal all if we get a right answer. If you know who this is,
there's hardly any experience.
87222. Matt is in Cheshire. Matt, how you doing?
Very good, thanks, Ian.
Good.
Can I just say, I like to think I know my political figures, but I'm absolutely atrocious at the voice of doom.
Are you? Yeah. Well, I am as well, because every now and again, the guys put one together, and I don't know who it is till we play it, and I don't think I've got a single one right yet.
You know why? Because they've mastered the length of the clip, so you can't really ever tell.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of that. And also, it's a bit like the anagram on Countdown. I've never got one of those bad boys either.
I've done about 3 in about 30 years or something like that.
Yeah, it's a good try. It's one every decade. That's not...
when it's obvious, when it's really obvious.
Exactly, yeah, cat. Anyway, what are you thinking about the government's action plan, Matt?
How can a party that is the most responsible for creating and grovelling to extremists claim to want to get rid of them when it's their whole reason for being?
Great point.
There is no right-wing extremism on university campuses. And as we know, the extremists that Labour create won't allow them. And we all know that whenever anybody, even like Caroline Noakes, goes on a university campus, they have a nervous breakdown. So, yet again, we have. I thought of a new thing. It's called natural gaslighting. It's like gaslighting, but it's Ed Miliband related.
Oh, I like it.
He claims to be laser focused on the safety of women as well, and it's his entire raison d'etre now, yet he's simultaneously distributing dark age, low-life men all over the country. So Starmer is so dangerously vacuous, he actually thinks he can talk us round with even more gigantic lies.
Do you think, you know that whole thing, if you're going to tell a lie, tell a big one? Do you think it's kind of that? Because I wonder, when they talk about right-wing Tories who think they know more than, the little people. You always get that sort of Jacob Rees-Mogg, Boris Johnson sort of elite, sort of middle upper class people. They don't care about lying because they believe they are superior. That's the accusation. I think the left have that in bucket loads, man. I think they genuinely believe they're on a moral crusade. So it doesn't matter if you tell somebody a lie in the name of your moral crusade, then that's a noble lie, as Plato would have said. That's fine.
They basically say the mask of decency is to mask the hideousness of their evil. And Starmer is just like a patsy. They stand him up there like a cardboard cutout, and all the real sickos in the cabinet, like Ed Miliband and Angela Rayner, and all the real horrible people in the background, he basically is just their mouthpiece. And you can see the fear in his eyes whenever a journalist asks him a question. You can see his pupils dilating and his eyes oscillating. So nobody even listens to him here. Everybody I speak to has never hated anybody as much in their entire life. And that includes mass murderers.
I genuinely do not understand that includes mass murderers. Bonnie and Clyde, Dr. Jekyll, all of the, we've got the whole list there. The problem I can't get my head around is that he's apparently on the left of the Labour Party. Bearing in mind, this is a man that's lost the election, that ran for an election and didn't win. Apparently the left of the party really like Ed Miliband, and I can't, for the life of me, fathom why.
Because we'll go back to the extremists again. He basically he panders to the extremists, doesn't he? He keeps the remaining support on side, whereas Starmer is so vacuous and in the middle of the road, they're losing support left, right, and centre. So now they're caught between a rock and a hard place. And I must say, just like with Joe Biden, I'm enjoying the incremental death of them all. I want to see him go tomorrow morning, but I'm really enjoying watching them fall apart in stages.
Yeah. Well, they certainly are. And you're right. I mean, half the country have never really heard of Ed Miliband, and the ones that have tend to think, oh, my God, not him. I mean, he seems to be, among many people, open-minded people, just a bit of he's sort of national joke territory. Other than that curious contingent in the Labour Party who would quite like to see him in the head job at number 10, which is just it's so bizarre. I mean, you have to just laugh at it rather than cry. Matt, thank you very much indeed for that. Great call from Matt in Cheshire. David in London says, great show. Unfortunately, David Lammy also went to Harvard. Yes, he did, didn't he? Went over to Harvard, But, hey, listen, Harvard need people to work in the tuck shop as well. So, yeah, he was there as well. Not sure, says David, that makes them look having him go there. I get the point. Thank you for that. Whatever that said. I think I just read it incorrectly. Right, Voice of Doom. Who is this?
There's hardly any experience.
Hardly any experience. If you think you know, 87222. We'll be back on the other side of the news at 3 o'clock right here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Home of Common Sense. Coming up on 3 minutes after 3 o'clock, the Middle East crisis continues, of course. We know about the blockade, and we are more than aware that this problem is growing bigger by the day. Causes Keir Starmer a bit of a domestic headache, of course, because his big focus is the cost of living crisis. Hard to do when oil is going through the roof, exceeding potentially and expected to go over the $100 a barrel. It's not been like that for around about 4 years. The UK highly vulnerable, of course, and we only have 2 days worth of reserves, so this thing could get pretty tricky for us. Also over the weekend, Iran named Khamenei, the son of the former Ayatollah, as the new supreme leader. The recent killings of many of his family members meant that fewer people have more of an intense personal reason to fiercely resist America and Israel and reject any compromise or surrender. We'll have more of that in just a couple of moments. And as you've been hearing, the government has launched a new social cohesion action plan to get everybody to sing merrily together from the same cultural hymn sheet. The initiatives include measures to combat extremism, notably in universities and the charity sector, they say. We'll have more on that from you too. Everything you need to know is right here on Talk, and of course we bring you all the breaking news as well. 0344 499 1000. You can call or leave a voice note there, and of course you can message 87222. So let's go to that story, of course. The new Iranian Supreme Leader Khamenei has triggered controversial opposing opinions from many in the community. The hardline conservative, second son of the late Ali Khamenei, is an enigmatic figure with strong ties, of course, to the IRGC. We know that much. And one would assume in a very dangerous place right now. Let's get a word firstly with former Iranian political prisoner Shiva Mahboubi, who is with us. Shiva, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Nice to have you with us. Give us firstly, Shiva, your reaction, if you would, to the appointment of the new Supreme Leader. Looks pretty much like the last one to me.
Well, it was expected, to be honest, because remember, even inside the regime, they had so many frictions, and Khamenei, who was murdered, and we're really happy about it. So he was basically keep them together. And I think choosing Mojtaba was completely predictable, to kind of telling, it's more for their internal sort of affair within the regime, saying that to the IRGC that we still have someone under power, under same as Khamenei, because he's under his son, and also for the proxies in the region, just saying that, well, we still have someone that is very much linked to Khamenei and is similar to him. And this is more basically for their internal affair. It's a joke to people in Iran. There is no difference who they're going to choose, and really doesn't matter. But this is why they're choosing. That shows how weak the regime is, and how they had to do that as quick as possible to tell the IRGC and the proxies that, well, listen, we have a leader.
Now, of course, this is not some young 20-year-old taking the job. He's 56, so he's been in this world, this regime, for all of his adult life. It's all he knows. Does he carry any differences to his father? Is he what you would call in any other regime? You'd say, this guy's a modernizer. He's different to the last guy. He's got other ideas. Or is this literally an identical replacement for his father?
None of them are different, including Mojtaba. Even I notice in the media, they call Pezeshkian, the president, as reformist. No, they're all the same. We have to remember, in Iran, the way the government work, it's a system. It's not one person, it's not two person. So they will choose, if Mojtaba is killed, they're going to choose another one. Yeah. So all of them, they preserving the same system anyway.
Just give us an overview, if you could, Shiva. And it's often difficult to understand from a Western perspective, certainly sitting in the United Kingdom. We look at stories of Iran. It's a long way away, and you kind of follow it as much as you can. Doing this for a living, maybe I follow it a little more than I might have done if I was doing something else. But the bit that intrigues me is when this entire regime is eventually toppled, and I'm absolutely sure it will be. Of course, one of the most dangerous parts of these stories is the vacuum, the moment before somebody else is replaced. And even if the predicted incumbent into the predicted replacement in that world takes position, there will be others in Iran that say, no, this is not, Pahlavi is not the man for us, we want somebody else. What does that look like at the moment in Iran?
I think at the moment, to be honest, people in Iran, they do not think about it because they're caught between war and also a repressive regime that even right now they are arresting people. You might not believe it. They're executing people. They're torturing political prisoners. So they're not really worried about the later. Of course, that would be, we can't speculate really from now, but it will be a vacuum. But the thing is, I think the best point is that people need to choose their leader and their future government. And one of the way that UN has done it is the UN international monitoring, meaning like keeping the space safe for the free election to happen. There are many people, but I think we have more unity than what you think. We all united to overthrow the regime. And I think if we get rid of the regime, which we will, then we have a space for every person, every political parties to come and talk about their manifesto like any other countries. But I think for that, we need to topple the regime first. So that's why it's quite important. I mean, just today, this is shocking even for us. Just today, the judiciary in Iran issued a statement saying that Iranian people abroad, meaning people like myself, if they talk about the war, if they so-called collaborate with Israel and America, their property going to be confiscated inside Iran, and they might face sentence of executions. So we're dealing with such a family. That's why there is no space right now to think about a vacuum.
And in terms of support that this regime has, I mean, as you well know, and don't even ask me to explain this kind of twisted logic. Even over here in the UK, you know, we have students, okay, students do wacky stuff, we know that, but, you know, it's also quite dangerous sometimes. Manchester, Birmingham last week, protests, people mourning in the UK, the death of this man in Iran. I mean, I find that at one level, it's just a bit embarrassing for the rest of the world to see that. But I also find it jaw-dropping that anyone would say, this poor guy, he's been taken out by the Americans. He was such a good bloke. I mean, you'd have to be a student of history or current affairs to know this was not a good man. So is that support that it's small, of course, but is that support replicated in Iran itself?
Absolutely not. I mean, in Iran, even not just, it's a very, very small fraction that I always said that they get paid or they're part of the regime. But even the military that they refuse to serve the IRGC. We see footages that they get arrested and they get threatened. I mean, for people outside of Iran, this is, I think, hypocrisy, to be honest. I mean, I always said it on your program. I've previously said it that where were they when Khamenei massacred tens of thousands of people? Khamenei is not just one person. To us, it's like Hitler. It's no different than Hitler. And people who mourn someone like Khamenei, and actually they forgot that 47 years they've been killing people. I think they're very selective in their humanity and who to support. And most of them, if you can see that someone were holding a photo of Hitler, what would you say? Khamenei is exactly the same. So whoever is supporting the regime now outside of Iran is really taking side in the history. They're with the regime. I think this kind of action is colluding with the crime against humanity. As simple as that.
Yeah. Shiva, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate that. Let's speak again as this story progresses. Shiva Mahboubi, who is a former Iranian political prisoner. She speaks with a qualified voice. It's just interesting when you look at those protests that were taking place. By the way, you know, some of those student protests, they're not all kind of Iranians that are out there mourning the death of the former supreme leader. You know, some of these are, you know, sort of white lefties who, you know, the usual kind of, you know, you get the same with all the protests. As Minan used to say, never trust a white bloke with dreadlocks, because you nearly always find him at a protest for something, whether it's about oil, whether it's about this or whatever. Some middle-class Tarquin character who has decided, for whatever reason, that this former Ayatollah was quite a good bloke. Well, he wasn't, and neither is his replacement. Let's speak to Jason Brodsky, Policy Director of United Against Nuclear Iran. Jason, nice to have you with us. I mean, on that point, it is just worth dwelling where we were discussing with Shiva there. You know, this is not like the new face of Iran with the replacement. This is just like a younger version of the old face, right?
Yes, it's great to be with you. I think that there's going to be a lot of continuity between Mojtaba Khamenei and his father, but Mojtaba Khamenei has also been marinating in radical ideology and radical circles throughout his entire career, and that's important. He represents the worst aspects, he embodies them, of the Islamic Republic: corruption, nepotism, secrecy, crackdowns, repression, terrorism. So I think that his upbringing as being a pupil of some of the hardest right Ayatollahs in Iran, like Ayatollah Mohammad Taqi Yazdi, who has advocated that Iran has a right to nuclear weapons. He's going to be a very radical face of the Iranian regime.
So I guess this is a straight case of you've got to get rid of all of them, right? And now that's easier said than done, of course, because there's, you know, even the Americans and the intelligence brilliance of the Israelis, they will clearly know, you know, they'll have a big old list of names, you know, they're the ones we've got to remove in whatever form. But there will be others, Jason, won't there? There are others, you know, waiting in the wings with similar ideological aims that would quite happily take up this cause, even if it's from a cave in a mountain, if they have to.
Well, I think that there is no shortage of alternatives, but I think that why the system wanted another Khamenei in charge is because it provides predictability and stability during wartime, and that provides the armed forces and security services with a sort of dependability that they will have the systems back should they engage in abuses of the Iranian people, and that's important to prevent defections and any cracks in the armed forces and security services.
And one would assume the son taking over could potentially be more have you know, more ambitions and more intent, bearing in mind his father and various other members of his own family have now been wiped out, and arguably more to come. This would be a man on a mission, I would have thought, Jason.
Well, yes, I think that if you look at the rise of his father, Ali Khamenei, and Mojtaba, and you compare them, both of them were injured as they rose politically at the top of the Islamic Republic. Ayatollah Khamenei was wounded in a bomb attack in June 1981, and that propelled his rise as president and later supreme leader. Mojtaba was also reportedly injured during the Operation Epic Fury, and that also has fueled his rise. He'll be known to his supporters as a, quote, living martyr, just like his father was. And he lost his father, he lost his mother, he lost his wife, he lost his sister and other relatives. So that's important in understanding the psychology of the person who is at the helm in Iran.
Indeed. Mojtaba, there is some reports that he's already been injured in some capacity. Are you hearing anything of that nature?
Yes, reportedly he has been injured, and as I said before, that just maps his father's rise politically within the Islamic Republic. And I think it's interesting, he hasn't made any public appearance since he's been named as supreme leader, raising questions as to the exact extent of the injuries that he's had. And also your viewers should note that Mojtaba has not had an extensive public profile in Iran prior to his elevation as supreme leader. All that's existed have been photos of him during state occasions. He has never been a feature on state TV. There's only been one video clip of him talking on camera that first circulated in 2024. So he has a very minimal public footprint, and so it raises questions to me as to why the regime hasn't put out at least a video message from him after his elevation yet.
And Jason, just briefly, what is the status in terms of nuclear threat of Iran? I mean, months ago, of course, Trump and all had gone in and removed, we were told, by the American administration with much glory and steadfast resolve from the president, as he does. We've taken it away. They have no nuclear capability. We've done it. And then this happened, of course, in the last week or more now, which we are told was aimed at removing nuclear capability, when previously we've been told that had already been not just reduced, but obliterated.
Well, I think there are still nuclear facilities that are of concern to the United States and Israel, particularly a place called Pickaxe Mountain that was not targeted during Operation Midnight Hammer. There's also concerns as to the status of the stockpile of highly enriched uranium that Iran is currently sitting on in Isfahan. And I think it would be important for that to take care of that stockpile as a part of this Operation Epic Fury campaign. As you'll see, there were reports circulating about the president considering ground forces and commando operations to secure that stockpile. And that would be a very dramatic decision for the United States to make. But without dealing with that stockpile, that provides a base of material, should it be extracted by the Islamic Republic, to potentially move towards a nuclear weapon. So that has to be top of mind for U.S. and Israeli security officials.
Indeed. Finally, this is a bit like asking how long is a piece of string, but what is your best guess as to how long this is likely to go on for? We know Donald Trump favours swift action in these kind of situations. He ideally didn't want to get involved in any kind of foreign wars. This was up there on the list, however. Do you think this is weeks, months or years?
Oh, I think it's some weeks ahead. I think President Trump is preparing the American public for that this operation will last for some more time. But he is very reluctant to get involved into so-called forever wars. But I think he wants to show the United States and our allies that the U.S., with a decisive application of American power, is able to attack and tackle an acute security threat by depriving the Iranian regime of the ability to project power beyond its borders. And I think that that power has been deeply, deeply eroded over the last week. Just that. So I think that this will go on for some more weeks, and the president can declare victory in a way, because we have badly damaged the Islamic Republic's capabilities.
Jason, thank you for your time, sir. We will speak again. Jason Brodsky, he is Policy Director at United Against a Nuclear Iran. Thank you to him. Back to you in a couple of moments. 0344 499 1000. Vincent says, I think the new Ayatollah will spend his time working from home rather than going into the office over the next few weeks. I think that's probably the best thing to do. Yeah, I'll come in maybe on Wednesday, but that's all you're getting from me. Thank you, Vincent, for that. 0344 499 1000.
He is a weak, spineless coward of a man. He's I know it's an old adage, but he's a lawyer, not a leader. He's had a whole career of never forming an opinion, following law, international law, and following orders from others, never having to form the opinion himself. And if he'd come out and said he was ideologically disposed to not wanting to go to war with Iran because, he supports the Muslim vote in the UK, we all know it's the truth, but at least he'd have the backbone to come out and say it.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. 0344 499 1000. This from Brad, who says, watching gay and transsexual people marching in support of dead Supreme Leader of Iran is as bizarre as it would have been to see Jewish people marching in sympathy over the death of Hitler. What a country. Yeah, this is us we're talking about, where students are crying, weeping. And the reason they're weeping, by the way, I'm talking about a slight mad contingent of students, isn't because, it's not really because of the death of the former Ayatollah. It's because it's about America and Israel. So if America and Israel were involved in something, therefore it must be very, very bad and must be opposed. And the supreme moral position is that. So we're opposed to America, we're opposed to Israel. Therefore, those dudes over there in Tehran, quite good blokes, really. I mean, you can't make it up, but that's the thinking. Herbie is in Harrow. How you doing, Herbie?
Not so bad, Ian. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Fire away.
Yeah, look, the government's to blame on everything that's happening because they've got no idea or plan as to what to do in a crisis. A crisis upon a crisis upon a crisis just keeps on happening, and they've got no idea of how to get out of it. They really don't. They don't have a clue on anything. You know, they're running the country down. They've let us down on everything. They've got no plans for future, in regarding energy. You know, they're not listening to people, and that's to fill up the holes in the North Sea, for God's sake, the concrete. Where's this madman going? Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. We're going to suffer very dearly for this.
Well, we're living in slightly unbelievable times, aren't we?
Well, true, yeah, but listen, the petrol went up almost overnight. That's even what was in the tanks, you know, the petrol forecourts, you know, it's gone up by 5, 10, 15p. You know, we're paying a very hefty price for a government that doesn't know what to do with the crisis that we've got. It's as simple as that, Ian.
Love it. Herbie, straight to the point. Thank you very much indeed for that. Let's, before we continue, do the voice of doom. Have we got a winner on the political mystery voice bit? This is the voice, day 4 of this voice. Have a listen.
There's hardly any experience.
These are some of the guesses. Jimmy White. Jimmy White. Finn, do you even know who Jimmy White is? It's table tennis, wasn't it? Yeah. Jimmy White, the snooker player, the ace, the 147 Jimmy. No, it's not Jimmy White, oddly. Number 1, he's not a politician. And number 2, don't sound nothing like him. Tony Blair, no. Robert Jenrick, Harold Macmillan, Rishi Sunak, Zach Polanski, no. David Miliband, Ed Balls, no. Brendan O'Neill, no. Rory Stewart, Andy Burnham, it is not. Ian McMillan, no. Alistair Strathern, no. Donica McCarthy, the bike bloke, no. Not him either. We haven't got a winner. It rolls over to tomorrow for day 5. We look forward to that. 3. More comment from you. Stan the man in Cheshire says, afternoon, Ian. A cost of living crisis and a blackout because we've run out of gas and oil will highlight how vulnerable we are because of Ed Miliband's green policymakers. We're in for a rough time. This, genuinely, this could be really rough. And I don't, this is not some kind of deliberate hyperbole to sensationalise a story. I mean, quite genuinely, at the moment, we're in a position where if everything stood as it currently stands, things will get very bad very quickly in terms of energy supplies and the blockade and all that goes with it. There could be movement within that same period on the other side, and everything starts to move again, in which case, problem potentially averted. But don't put your money on that. And the knock-on effects are absolutely massive. Martin is in Exeter. What have you got for us, Martin? Afternoon to you.
OK, I've got a plan for national unity.
Nice. And, I'm all about that.
And I have thought about it, and I am serious about it, so I'll start with the soft version.
OK.
So if we went full United Kingdom, in other words, nationality, flags on buildings, and you fit in, or the other option, which we can't see on the radio. Problem at the moment is that the other side, let's call them the migrants, believe that there is a chance that there might be, let's say, a caliphate or Sharia law or whatever. And if we dissuade them of that delusion, well, actually it's not a delusion, if we dissuade them from that by going full national, so you come to the UK, we're a Christian society and I'm not Christian, you fit in and that's it. There will be no leeway. So we take all the Arabic names off our train stations and we go full UK. And I think, bizarrely, that will add to national unity, because then people who want to be here will understand that that's what they're fitting into.
But then how do we square that with... One of the things we often talk about when we're referencing other countries around, like Iran or something like that, you know, try to walk down Tehran High Street or Riyadh High Street in Saudi with a Bible, and you'll discover the error of your ways very quickly. And we often say, you know, we're not like that in this country. We allow people to have a freedom of expression, and if somebody wants to practice Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Sikhism, they're free to do so. Do we then have to put a stop to all of that? And if we do, does that make us look a little bit like the very people we're criticising?
No, we don't put a stop to it. There will have to be a little period of adjustment, but no, we do not put a stop to that. We don't want to be like Iran, which was previously not a Muslim country, by the way. We just... So in the 60s and 70s and 80s, when I grew up, we had lots of migrants, lots of different nationalities, and we all seemed to get on okay because there was this underlying base of Britishness. Now, you could be on the fringes of that, and that was fine. And you could be a Muslim, you could be whatever you want. But what the establishment is doing, now I'm getting into the conspiracy stuff, is they are cutting away that from underneath our feet and making us doubt ourselves. So if we become more British, so as I said, no Arabic names on no translations, nothing of that sort of nonsense. You learn the language, and I think, and because sorry to say this, but the Muslims believe that they will establish a Muslim state in this country if they haven't done so already.
I mean, some would believe that. I would imagine there's quite a lot of just general moderate Muslims who've never even thought about that question.
Yes, 100%.
It might become, if one group of people are procreating at a greater rate than another group of people, then inevitably you haven't got to be a mathematician to work out that will change demographically the fascia, at the very least, of the country. That's got to happen, whatever group it happens to be.
I agree with that, but and we can't deny the fact that they are outbreeding us, but we don't have this base of Britishness. Yeah. So if you think about, and I'm really sorry to say this, but if you think about the Chinese, for example, and they do take extremes, I'm not suggesting that, but they don't tolerate this. So if I went to China tomorrow, I'm going to have to be Chinese. I'm going to have to fit in with the Chinese way of life. Yeah, don't do the voice when you go there, though. Get in trouble. But you know what I mean? What the government, and I believe it's deliberate, is that they've cut away the base. You can't display your flag because it's far right. You can't have a statue of Winston Churchill because it's colonial, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And when you strip away your identity, you actually create greater social disruption. You do, yeah. You absolutely do. You're spot on. Martin, great call. Thank you very much indeed for that. I mean, they are just irredeemable realities, aren't they? In terms of the profile of a nation, you often wonder. I think if you were, I've given this example before, that if you were watching a documentary about a very small tribal people in South America, and due to subjugation and capitalism and building projects, their area or their land was gradually being taken over. Incursions are happening all over the place, and they're in danger of, as a small race of people, being wiped out.
then a lot of people on the left would sit there in tears watching this documentary. They'd be donating on the hotline and setting up a crowdfunder so that these people can carry on their culture and their ways. Now, I know the Western world works slightly different to that, but it's a bit of a point, I think, in this debate, and particularly when you get into birth rates where there is a problem. And this is across, it turns out that white people are not breeding. I mean, is that, even white people don't fancy white people anymore? What the hell's going on? There is something in that. And of course, the reasons that becomes a powerful argument are not just about culture and ethnicity and identity. I mean, there are genuine economic reasons that if a country doesn't increase its numbers at a certain rate, then down the line, futurists who work in government will go, give it 30 years, mate, we're stuffed. Why? Because literally no one will be there to work in the right numbers. So that's why, but then maybe AI kicks in and rescues us all. I don't know. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 25 to 4. Don't forget, of course, Kevin O'Sullivan's going to be here after the news at 4 o'clock, but he will pop in before then to tell us a little bit more. Now, the BBC is facing some heavy criticism for axing its live broadcast of the annual Commonwealth Day service at Westminster Abbey. They've been airing this since 1989. Now, the corporation chose to show Escape to the Country instead, and defended the decision, citing difficult choices due to funding challenges. I mean, the fact that they put a programme called Escape to the Country is something having a laugh with us over there. They've done it for the best part of 40 years or whatever that is. Michael Cole, royal commentator, joins us. Michael, good afternoon to you. I mean, look, I appreciate that budgets are tight, whether you're at BBC HQ or anywhere else. But it does seem a bit of a self-flagellating moment for the national broadcaster.
Good afternoon, Ian. You know, this is not just a sad decision by the BBC. It's not just a bad decision. It's worse than that. It is a mistake by any standards. This is an event that the national broadcaster, and that's an important distinction, should be covering. Yeah. If it wasn't important, the BBC itself would have had 2 reporters on the lunchtime news and a lengthy report about it. If it's not worth covering, why are they there? Of course it's worth covering. The Commonwealth is a force for good in the world, as the King says in his message, and it represents 2.7 billion people. That's a third of the world population from 56 countries. And they're all represented there. And it means something to them. And it ought to mean something to the BBC. Now, look, you mentioned that it says the reason why it's not covering after 37 years this service is that it's facing funding challenges. Now, what does that mean? It means, Governor, I haven't got the money.
Yep.
Well, when it comes to November, and the Commonwealth heads of government meeting will take place in Antigua, sunny Antigua and Barbuda in the West Indies, you can bet that the BBC will have a big team there. I've covered more than two Commonwealth conferences. They'll have a big team there, and that will cost plenty of money. But they haven't got the resources to go just a mile from Broadcasting House down to Westminster Abbey to cover this important service, which in itself is important. Most of the royal family are there, and it's the biggest gathering of the royal family, I think, since Christmas.
Yeah.
And there'll be some very important readings and new music and poetry. It's an important thing for lots of people around the world, but it's not, apparently, to our national broadcast, to the BBC.
And when you look, I mean, look, I suppose we can all do this, and everyone has their own favoured TV schedule, but I think I could make a fairly supportive list, supportive as in lots of people would agree with me, of other things you might be able to cut before you got to this event.
Well, it's got so many rather inept, inane game shows. How many antique hunts can you do?
Yeah.
As you say, Escape to the Country is the alternative on BBC One today. But if they want to cut money, they should send fewer people to Glastonbury, shouldn't they? I mean, what does that cost? And of course, it cost the former Director General, Tim Davey, his job.
Yeah. Indeed. So,
I mean, it's a question of good husbandry. Where you are, where I am, people husband their money, they look after it, they spend it wisely. The BBC doesn't actually seem to do that. If it can't cover something as important as the Commonwealth annual service, then what is it there for? That's what people will be saying. I think it diminishes to some extent the Commonwealth. It undermines its importance. And in this fractious world, dangerous world, the Commonwealth is a force for good. It's a voluntary organisation. People come together with shared values, the rule of law, democracy, prosperity, and friendship. Those are the important things. Well, there are not enough organisations in the world that are dedicated to friendship as the Commonwealth is. I've been around the world. I've been to many of these countries, and there's tremendous goodwill for this country and its history, despite what other people may tell you.
Indeed, and it's, you know, economically, there's very good reasons for the Commonwealth to remain. It's an area that doesn't get discussed enough. On a sort of connected issue, though, Michael, I mean, naturally, these kind of stories will always bring up the issue of the licence fee and you know, what that's likely to look like. Last week we covered a story where, you know, we understand that certain elements of the BBC were in favour of maybe some kind of levy or tax on it of some kind. I mean, I don't think it gets rid of the public element. It makes it still compulsory, but done in a different way. I noticed at the weekend that in Switzerland, voters had a referendum on their TV licence over there. I was unaware that the Swiss Broadcasting Corporation, the SBC, was even a thing in the same way, but it is, and they currently charge £320 a year for it, so it's kind of much more, twice the amount almost we pay. But they put it to a referendum to reduce the fee substantially. It was being proposed that it should go down to £190, so kind of halving it pretty much, and it was rejected. The Swiss wanted to keep it as it was. It's very interesting. 70% of voters backed the government's counter-proposal, which said the Swiss National Bank would guarantee the supply of cash. They insisted that everything will be fine.
Yeah, well, of course, over here, people are taking matters into their own hands, voting well, not with their checkbooks, with their feet. They're not paying. Did I hear the figure the other day, only 80% of the people who should be paying the license fee are. Of course, the BBC can no longer enforce or help to enforce prosecutions for non-payment of the license fee, and people are they're just scofflaws. They're not interested anymore. Of course, the Swiss are very ordered people. They have referenda on almost everything.
They do.
And usually take a very conservative view, which is probably their right. It's very, very difficult. We've had the license fee, which is an unofficial poll tax, if you like, for more than 100 years.
Yeah.
I think it started at 10 shillings a year, which was £0.50, 50 pence.
Wow.
All these years ago, when it was the British Broadcasting Corporation was first founded. And of course, next year, the Royal Charter, which is the BBC's passport to broadcast, its license to broadcast, comes up for review. I think I contributed to a book about this not long ago, what should be done about the license fee, but almost universally, everybody's said that the present model is unsustainable. What you do is, I think, well, why don't we open it up to the public? The BBC proudly proclaims almost every minute of the day, it's your BBC. Well, let us all have a say about it.
Yeah, fair point. Michael, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir. Michael Cole, royal commentator, former television man himself. By the way, I did conflate two referendum there. The result was actually 62%, 38%. The proposal defeated on Sunday's referendum, gaining 38% support. This was to reduce the licence fee, and 62% voted to keep the licence fee at its current level. The figure I gave you of 70% was actually, because they do referendums quite a lot, as Michael said there, in Switzerland, and it seemed like quite a good idea. The other vote they had was to vote in favour of always having the availability of cash enshrined in the Constitution. Now, this becomes really interesting. You're talking about Switzerland here. So when you think about digital currencies and all the rest of it, you might think the Swiss would be way ahead of the game and endorsing this from the rafters. So that was the question, to be in favour of having the availability of cash enshrined in the Constitution, and 70% of voters backed the government's counter proposal. That the Swiss National Bank would guarantee the supply of cash. So there you go. So it's not all about the digital stuff, even over there in Switzerland. Phil is down in London. Phil, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, I'm quite sort of staggered, I guess, about energy security. I'm just sort of talking with ChatGPT at the moment in regards to Norway versus the UK and decisions it chose to take. Norway kept it under state ownership. It's got a massive wealth fund now. We sold it off.
Yeah.
We've got a massive wealth fund. But also I want to point to, apart from the complete lack of strategic thought about any of our services in terms of water, which are critical, energy, etc., etc. It's just the distinct, the ironic thing is, and this is not a dig at you, Ian, but the talk is very, very sort of heavily weighted in terms of more of a conservative vote, and yet I don't hear any sort of prognostications or any sort of acceptance of the fact that we may have done something wrong and let the country down by selling everything else. And also, I'd like to also add is that Farage just seems to get a swerve all the time. I mean, he's tub-thumping sort of full-throated support for Trump going into Iran, and yet I've just been reading that we could have energy bills going up by an extra £200 to £300 by July.
Yeah.
I mean, how does a man like that turn around and say,
but can you wear
secure energy, but then has to sort of...
But can you wear two hats on this? I mean, would it... I doubt whether the argument to not go into Iran in military terms would be very authentic if it was predicated on the issue of your gas bill going up.
No, but what I'm saying is this is all about geopolitics as well. I mean, LNG, when the Nord Stream was blown up, whoever blew it up, but basically LNG is now provided to the UK and to Europe via the US. So the US are actually earning out of US exports are earning out. I think this is a move by Trump to obviously reorientate the world in terms of energy security as well. I mean, whether Iran, I mean, I hope Bibi Netanyahu talk about Iran going to have nuclear weapons since 1992, and every single time he's been saying that in 6 months' time they're going to be fully enriched in uranium, and that's been going on since 1992. I think I counted about 13 times. So what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, we've sort of shot our right foot off to ameliorate our left foot, and the people in the media as well, and the people that are sort of, like I say, the likes of Farage and others that are saying, we've got to get involved. They've got to be cognizant of the fact is when Iranian refugees start rocking up on UK shores.
It's a fair point, yeah. It's a fair point. But then, as I always seem to say on these things, Phil, or certainly for the last week, we sort of try to look for consistency and total logic in geopolitical stories, and very rarely will we find that full-blown consistency and full-blown perfect logic, and I sense this is one such story where there's all manner of kind of slight contradictions and revisiting previous beliefs and a bit of revisionism thrown in for good measure. I get it. Phil, it's a great call though, and thank you, because it does provide almost a platform for a whole other debate about, what would it mean for the UK if we were fully involved in Iran. 0344 499 1000. Thank you to Phil. More from you on the way. And a reminder of this, we are giving you a chance to win 2 hospitality tickets to the British Grand Prix. This is Sunday, 5th of July, with the full Racing Green trackside experience. It is the ultimate setup for race day. Let me tell you, you'll get exclusive grandstand seats. God, I'd love to be there. At the Loop and Village Corners. Plus, inner track access to watch the drivers arriving at the paddock, and access to the hospitality shuttle bus for easy on-site transport, racing simulators, live music between sessions, all-day street food, and an open bar. Wow, this is big. Listen up now to find out how you could be in with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 20th of March 2026 at 4 p.m. That's when you need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
He is a weak, spineless coward of a man. He's I know it's an old adage, but he's a lawyer, not a leader. He's had a whole career of never forming an opinion, following law, international law, and following orders from others, never having to form the opinion himself. If he'd come out and said he was ideologically disposed to not wanting to go to war with Iran because, he supports the Muslim vote in the UK, we all know it's the truth, but at least he'd have the backbone to come out and say it.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This from Andy in Liverpool says if they make the TV licence, a tax, that means even if you don't watch the BBC or live TV, you still got to pay. That's theft in my eyes, says Andy in Liverpool. There really is no longer any defence of the TV licence. It's not an anti-BBC point. It's just a reality, isn't it? I don't know in what world you could construct an argument to say, yeah, let's keep that thing going. All the while you've got streaming services knocking around. I guess, I don't know, somebody might want to crunch the numbers and say, well, how many people actually watch this programme compared to that programme? How many bangers do they knock out over the course of a year? We've all gone down the Netflix rabbit hole of spending about 17 hours looking for the next big thing and failing miserably. So, yeah, the streaming services have their shortcomings as well, but it's your choice. That's the difference. Ian is in Cardiff. Ian, what have you got for us? Hi.
Yeah, hi there.
Hello.
It's hello. It's just a quick observation, really. It appears over the last 2 weeks, our leader, Keir Starmer, seems to be staying home a lot more than he has done since he's been Prime Minister. Even Macron has gone over, or is going over to Cyprus, and he's nowhere near it at all. And as he decided, home is where the heart is.
Yeah, is he just scared, or has he been advised that right now is not the time to? I mean, I don't know how many foreign trips Starmer has done since he became Prime Minister.
Oh, quite a few.
He could write a book on that alone when he's done, couldn't he? Goodness me. Or is it just that there is nothing in the diary? Are we overthinking
Possibly
it?
so.
Yeah.
As I say, just observation. He suddenly doesn't seem to be due to go anywhere. Hasn't been anywhere. Whereas up until now, you've been hearing he's due to go there. He's going to this meeting. He's going to sort of everything else. It just seems it was just an observation. That's all.
No, I get you. Thank you very much indeed, Ian in Cardiff. Phil is in Hull. Back to Iran, Phil. What are you thinking?
Oh my God! Ian, I've had a great show. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I've spoke to 3 people today, and everybody asked me the same question. Are you ashamed? I said I am. I'm ashamed of our government because they're a set of incompetent people. Use the word gaslighting. I'm old. I don't really understand what that is. I just call it lying. They didn't know. They weren't sure about sending a ship there. Lammy thinks it's in NATO. Wrong. He thinks Henry VII followed Henry VIII. Wrong. It's just wrong on everything. Steve Reid comes on, gaslighting everybody, saying, I'm using this modern vernacular, gaslighting everybody. He's the one who was housing minister. He was asked by the lady from the Telegraph, how many houses have we built this year? And he said, you're trying to catch me out. He said, you're blindsiding me. The housing minister don't know how many houses they've built in a year. He's been on again today. He's been on again today doing the same. And when the Prime Minister comes out before the election and says, we'll put country first and party second, that was just a downright lie, because all they've ever done is put the party and his own position at the top of the list for everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything. And they've even outsourced recruitment to Serco, and they're turning people down for having acne, apparently.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I've been told. Now they're talking about letting them wear makeup. I mean, we can't go to the front. I forgot to put my lipstick on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. All of it is absolutely ridiculous.
Are you saying we're living in an upside-down world, Phil? Is that what you're getting at?
Is it? Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that.
Are you saying we're living in an upside-down world at the moment?
Absolutely.
Weird Hall of Mirrors, kind of Alice in Wonderland, bizarre, strange, dystopian existence. Danny Boyle couldn't have directed this better.
My old mum had a word for the people like that. She used to call them 9 bob notes.
9 bob notes. Remember that phrase from my nan as well. Listen, Phil, I've got to move, Phil, just because we've hit the clock, but thank you very much indeed for that. It's interesting Phil mentioned gaslighting there, because he said it's not a term he's normally familiar with. Gaslight is a 1940s film called Gaslight. And I only say this, there's two comments on this very point. One is that it was when we were at school, we went to see they took us to a play, a theatre in Folkestone to see Gaslight, and it was probably not really a school, it wasn't an adult-themed play, but it's where the main character makes I think it's his wife, makes it, I think she's gone mad. So she's being gaslit. So it's not a new phrase, was my point. But it was based on a book by Patrick, I think it was Patrick, was it Patrick Hamilton?
I don't know.
Kev, you know your TV and film stuff.
No, but I mean, gaslighting is just another word for lying, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a fashionable term for telling fibs.
Yeah.
But don't worry about where it comes from. Nobody cares.
Well, it's not called my bluff, is it?
No, nobody cares where it comes from.
Well, I think
I will look it up.
I think the first who had copyright.
I'll look it up and I'll spend the second half of the show discussing
you know the film Gaslight. You must